Football, with such strong skills, even nightclubs can produce football kings. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 026. The stupidest joke. Against Dortmund, Feng spread his hands, without any nervousness on his face, and looked at Dennis as if nothing had happened. "Oh, Mr. Dennis, I was lying on the equipment to rest after training." Hearing this, Dennis had a look of doubt on his face, and he couldn't believe what Feng said. His disgusted eyes swept over Feng's body. After careful identification, he finally discovered a flaw in Feng's body. "You do strength training, don't you sweat at all?" Dennis said, and couldn't help but point his finger at Feng's head. Seeing that his excuse was exposed by head coach Dennis, Feng was a little embarrassed, so he could only sigh and speak his mind. "Well, actually, I didn't train just now. It's because I think my strength has reached the standard, so there is no need to do strength training. Instead, it is better to go to the football game to improve my vision ability." Dennis laughed out loud. This was the first time he heard such an excuse, leaving aside whether the strength is up to standard. Can the vision ability be improved in football games? What nonsense is this? What's more, what kind of vision ability does a football player who serves as a forward develop? You are not a midfielder. Do you need to organize the offense? If you have this skill, you might as well practice more and grab points in front of the goal. Feng, this is really the stupidest joke I've heard this year. You really disappoint me. Facing the most talented player on the team, Dennis did not hide the hatred in his eyes at this moment and disappointment. The original dream of cultivating him into the next Messi and Ronaldo also wavered slightly at this moment. Is such an unself-disciplined player suitable for playing in the professional league? Dennis couldn't help but shook his head and continued in a cold tone, "Your professional attitude makes it impossible for me to believe that you will become an excellent player in the future. You don't need to participate in the team's training until you think about your problem clearly. Freiburg U17 is for the professional league, as a place to cultivate reserve forces, not to play house. According to your current professional attitude, I think it is more appropriate for you to return to China to go to school." After Dennis glanced at Feng indifferently, he did not think he continued to linger in the training room. Turned around and walked out. He was really pissed off. In the decades he has been working in youth training, it's not like he has never seen a genius like Feng. However, other players who have been dubbed geniuses have all trained diligently and through their own efforts have made it through the youth training and moved to a higher league stage. This is an encounter with players who secretly play games during training time, coupled with Feng's passive attitude on the court. Dennis really doubted that he might really not be suitable for football. Assistant coach Steven, standing aside, saw Dennis leaving the training room angrily and couldn't help but sigh. No matter how much he loved these young talents, but at this moment, he was a little discouraged. The next day, 9 o'clock in the morning, unusually, no players were training on the training ground at the Freiburg youth training base. They were all gathered in the locker room, waiting for Coach Dennis to announce the starting lineup for the next game against Dortmund U17. After Dennis announced the end without a smile, Feng appeared on the substitute list without any danger. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. This surprised Alger, who was originally worried about him. However, Feng had an indifferent attitude towards this situation. Rather than starting the game, he actually cares more about improving his abilities. Even if there are no games for the time being, as long as his various data are refreshed through special training, he can still compete in the 5 major leagues in the future. It's just that you will take more detours. 5 minutes later, the 18 players on the roster, plus coaches Dennis and Steven, all gathered in front of the club and took the bus to the Hubsop Arena on the outskirts of Dortmund. 2 p.m. The midday sun shines on the Hubsop Arena. About 200 fans of various identities had already poured into the stadium early, looking for a good seat to sit down and prepare to watch this youth team game. For fans who follow Dortmund, the recent games are still worthy of attention. In the first game of the Youth League, Dortmund defeated Bayern Munich with a big score of 2-0 and won a big victory. The opponent Freiburg faced in this game showed a shocking reversal against Hamburg. In this case, today's game against Freiburg is particularly eye Catching Dortmund's youth training camp is considered one of the best teams in Germany's youth training system. Many world-famous outstanding players have come out of the Dortmund Youth Academy. This also led to them being nicknamed the Little Monsters Youth Training Camp by fans. 10 minutes later, as players from both sides come onto the court, they line up, beep, the referee blew the whistle, and the Youth League officially kicked off. Freiburg forward Hardy sent the ball from the center circle and passed the ball to Alger, the playmaker in the midfield position of the team. Following the serve, Freiburg players quickly started maneuvering near the midfield. Upon seeing this, Dortmund's players immediately stepped forward and began to press. Not wanting to let their opponents easily bring the ball into the penalty area, after several short passes, Alger discovered a hole in Dortmund's sideline and kicked the ball to the right. After Hardy received the ball, he observed the situation around him and began to dribble forward. Seeing that Freiburg was about to launch a very dangerous attack at the beginning, many Dortmund fans subconsciously exclaimed on the sidelines, but the next second, star player Fabian Ruiz, who serves as a defensive midfielder in Dortmund, happened to be stuck in Hardy's path with the ball. In a tough head-on confrontation, the defender took a sudden step, destroying the ball and causing the two attackers and defenders to fall to the ground almost at the same time. The Dortmund fullback who came to fill the position quickly stepped forward to control the football and advance with the ball at the same time. The referee also reached out to indicate that there was no foul and the game continued. So beautiful. Ruiz, he is simply the savior of the team. Along with the shouts of the opponent's fans, Alger waved his arms fiercely, feeling a little unwilling. But the next second, he had to turn around and return to defense, preparing to intercept Dortmund's counterattack on the sidelines. Freiburg's head coach Dennis also showed a hint of disappointment in his eyes. However, the opponent was Dortmund, a well-known defensive team. He had anticipated this situation before the game started. After the ball returned to Dortmund, before the Freiburg players had time to press after losing the ball, the football had already reached the feet of Dortmund's midfielder. Dortmund's front belt ball advanced to the top of the center circle in the opponent's half and observed the position on the field. After seeing that all his passing routes were blocked by Freiburg, he took off without hesitation and sent a long pass directly towards his forward. After Dortmund's forward successfully countered offside, he caught the ball and turned and ran directly towards the Freiburg goal. Freiburg is in danger. Chapter 027. Freiburg's dilemma. The bishop with no bottom line. As the Dortmund forward entered the penalty area, Freiburg's defense quickly returned to defense. Seeing that his shooting route was about to be blocked, the Dortmund forward couldn't help but choose to shoot from the corner of the goal area. Bang! The football soared into the air. It may be that the Dortmund forward focused too much on the strength of his feet and ignored the angle of the shot, causing the football to fly out of the goal and miss the target. In the spectator seats, the Dortmund fans were not disappointed because the goal failed. Instead, they cheered even louder than before. Less than 5 minutes into the game, Dortmund's defensive counterattack tactics were extremely effective, and they almost broke through Freiburg's goal. The game continues on the court. The two sides fell into a continuous anxious offensive and defensive transition stage. 38 minutes of the game, when Alger was racing against the Dortmund central defender, Fabian Ruiz suddenly stepped forward and blocked the passing route of Alger and Hardy, stealing the ball again. After Dortmund got the ball, they did not delay the counterattack, and also sent a long pass directly to find their own forward, who successfully completed the advance. The hearts of Dortmund fans are lifted again after receiving the ball. The Dortmund striker made several stops and strode straight into the hinterland of Freiburg. This time, Freiburg's defense did not react as quickly as the first time, and the timing of returning to defense was slightly slow. Bringing the ball near Freiburg's baseline, Dortmund's forward changed his strategy because he had no angle, and did not take a shot by himself. Instead, the ball was passed back to the midfielder, who came forward. After the midfielder catches the ball, he immediately kicks and shoots into the far corner. Bang! The Freiburg goalkeeper was originally afraid of his opponent's forward, who pushed the shot into the far corner and stood around the door frame preparing to block it, but for the next push, he really didn't have time to react. As soon as he made the save, the football had already flown into the goal. Hey, the ball went in. Beep. The referee pointed in the direction of the center circle and sounded the sound that the goal was valid. The two sides struggled for nearly 40 minutes at the Hubs-Up Arena, and finally Dortmund took the lead to break the deadlock. 1-0 lead. Awesome. The deafening celebration sounds came from the fans in the spectator seats. Dortmund's players were also kneeling in celebration near the corner kick. What the hell? Dennis waved his arms dissatisfiedly on the sidelines to vent his anger. Obviously, the battle between spear and shield in the first half failed. Dortmund's defense was indeed impeccable. Freiburg's many attacks were stifled in the cradle. Among them, one player that must be mentioned is Fabian Ruiz, who serves as a defensive midfielder in Dortmund. At the same time, he was also the target of the scouts who watch the games from a corner of the hub's op arena. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. Rui's key interception was really shocking. With him in Dortmund's defense, Freiburg couldn't find a chance at all. A scout couldn't help but praise him while the Dortmund players were celebrating. His pen kept recording his data. A few minutes later the game restarted. After Freiburg served, they immediately mobilized in the midfield to organize a new round of attack, but after Dortmund had received a goal, they lost their initial impatience and continued to maintain a defensive posture, waiting for Freiburg's offensive mistakes. In the remaining 10 minutes of the first half, Freiburg's attack still failed to penetrate Dortmund's defense. Dortmund did not open up the score advantage again in the remaining time. Beep. Beep. The stoppage time ended, and the referee blew the time for the end of the first half. Players from both sides returned to the bench to rest and rehydrate. Feng, who was sitting on the bench, watched the entire first half of the game. He can clearly feel the gap between Freiburg and Dortmund. Although Dortmund U17 is famous for its excellent defense, in his opinion, there is not much gap between the two teams on the front line. On the contrary, Dortmund is better than Freiburg in the connection between midfield and forward. According to this situation, if head coach Dennis cannot make some changes in time in the second half, the form on the field will only be worse than the first half. After all, Dortmund can get 3 points in this game as long as they hold on to their advantage during the halftime break. Assistant coach Steven came to Dennis, patted him on the shoulder, and spoke in a heavy tone. Dennis, the situation on the field is not optimistic. The through ball in the midfield can always be intercepted by Dortmund's midfielder. In this case, we cannot organize an effective attack at all. Dennis, who heard Steven's complaint, also couldn't help but let out more breath. Why doesn't he know what's going on the field? Freiburg has been unable to penetrate Dortmund's defense, which is the gap between their strengths. If you want to break this situation, you can only wait for Dortmund's mistakes to give you an opportunity. But in the second half, when Dortmund has a goal advantage, will the defense easily give Freiburg a chance? Obviously not easy. What to do? Thinking of this, Dennis couldn't help but cast his eyes on Feng, who was sitting on the bench. Maybe replacing him can change the current situation on the court, but if this is the case, it is once again a blasphemy against his authority. The harsh words he just said yesterday afternoon, before Feng's attitude changes, and he no longer needs to participate in training and competitions. Is it going to be broken today? Dennis shook his head. This was not a situation he wanted to see. The keen Steven noticed Dennis's gaze and chuckled. Man, I know what you are thinking. How about letting Feng come on as a substitute in the second half? This is the second game of the league. We need the points in this game. Even 1 point is important. Dennis hesitated. I know, if we just let Feng play directly, it doesn't matter. Steven interrupted Dennis directly. Winning the game is the first priority. As for Feng's attitude and private life, we will wait until let me go and have a good communication with him after the game. You have a tough personality when it comes to following the trend, and you never get a good result every time you communicate. After thinking carefully, Dennis also made a decision in his mind. There is indeed a problem with his attitude and private life, and it deserves a good beating, but being able to score goals on the field is what Freiburg needs most now, and everything else is after the game. Okay then. Go tell Feng to get ready to warm up. Steven nodded, turned around and walked towards Feng. Feng, don't sit on the bench anymore. Get up and warm up. I'll replace you in the second half. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 028. Feng appears again, volleying unreasonably. Okay, Mr. Steven. Feng nodded, then stood up and came to the sidelines to start warming up. Feng was not surprised when he was asked to play. As long as head coach Dennis still wanted to win this game, putting himself on the field was the best choice. This is the self-confidence of Feng, the self-confidence of a person who highly recognizes his own skills no matter how strong Dortmund's defense is. How can a group of 17-year-old kids with a combined rating of around 60 stop him from scoring? 10 minutes later the players from both sides walked towards the court together, and the second half of the game was about to begin. At this time, the fourth official of the game on the sidelines also raised the substitution card. Freiburg's other original forward went off, and player number 87 Feng came on since it was a direct substitution at halftime. The forward did not play and sat on the bench on the sidelines with a depressed look on his face, and sitting next to him was the original left winger Balk. Both of them were originally the starting lineup for Freiburg U17, but now they are both sitting on the bench together at the side of the court. Feng took a deep breath, bent down and touched the turf of the Hub's Op arena, and then ran towards the court. "Come on, Feng, you are the team's last hope." When the teammates who stayed on the court saw Feng coming up, their eyes suddenly rose with some hope of winning the game after all. Feng is the strongest scorer in Freiburg's youth training team. At this moment, they can only place their hopes on him, hoping that he can penetrate Dortmund's goal. Beep. Soon, the referee blew the whistle to start the second half of the game, and the second half of the game officially began. The Dortmund forward sent the ball from the center circle. The midfielder who received the ball was not impatient and did not rush to organize the attack. Instead, he passed the ball back to the defender, preparing to stretch Freiburg's formation to seek opportunities. Freiburg, on the other hand, was in sharp contrast to Dortmund, and they stepped forward aggressively to press, but as a forward, Feng was different from them. He stood in his position, pacing and maintaining the formation, observing the situation on the field, and waiting for the opportunity to catch the ball. This also resulted in an obvious loophole in Freiburg's high press, and Dortmund easily passed the football from Feng's side to the midfield. See this situation. The scouts sitting in the corner couldn't help but have doubts on their faces. In addition to observing Fabian Rui, of course they also want to discover new talents for their club as much as possible, but after they noticed that Feng was of yellow race, they didn't have much interest in Feng. But he was the head coach of Freiburg who came up to turn the situation around when the headwind was against him, so he had to take a few more looks. But this performance is really too bad. When his team is lagging behind and he has just come off the bench and is full of energy, he is not even aggressive in pressing. It almost made dogs shake their heads after seeing it on the playing field. Dortmund's attack this time was easily interrupted by Freiburg because there were not many players in the midfield afterwards. Freiburg made a few quick passes and quickly passed a ball to Alger near the center circle. Organizing the attack again, the two sides continued to tangle near the midfield, and the pace of the game gradually accelerated, with frequent transfers of ball possession and quick counterattacks. After Freiburg replaced Feng in the second half, it did not have much effect in a short period of time because Feng did not actively move and respond to teammates' passes. Freiburg's ball route was even worse than in the first half. This made Dennis, who was anxiously watching the game on the bench, break out in a cold sweat and began to reflect on the current situation on the field. Feng's playing style is too unrestrained and he rarely drops back to catch the ball if there is no chance. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. Facing a strong defensive team like Dortmund, the 3-2-4-1 formation is not very suitable if Feng is to be reused. The single forward formation is obviously inappropriate. It should be very good to replace Feng with an offensive shadow forward who is skilled in dribbling skills. Unintentionally, Dennis subconsciously regarded Feng as the absolute core of Freiburg U17. This is contrary to what he said yesterday to persuade Feng to give up football. The game time came to 60 minutes. Freiburg seized the opportunity of this attack. Alger passed the ball through the ball to Hardy, who hit Dortmund's ribs with a need to frequently retreat to defend and press forward to organize counterattacks. The rhythm of Dortmund's midfield has already been disrupted. This through ball penetrated a defense and caused chaos in Dortmund's defense. "I'm here to guard him, please block his passing route." A loud shout rang out in Dortmund's defense, and then saw Fabian Rui, the defensive midfielder, step forward and get stuck in the high-speed start. Hardy's breakthrough line comes up as a star player. His command of the defense seemed to give reassurance to the entire Dortmund team. See this situation. Feng, who was standing in Dortmund's defense, also saw the opportunity and immediately raised his hand to ask for the ball. Here, after Hardy saw that the person raising his hand for the ball was Feng, he chose to pass the ball to him without hesitation. This is the belief that the entire Freiburg team has in Feng. Bang! A dull passing sound sounded. Hardy kicked up and kicked the ball to Feng. Feng's performance has been relatively lazy since he came on the field. This caused the highly tight Dortmund defense to focus more on the Freiburg midfielder who broke through and advanced. This caused Dortmund's central defender who was marking Feng to immediately become alert when he saw Feng raising his hand to ask for the ball. But on the field, a moment of negligence can lead to missed opportunities. Feng didn't take a few steps back before firmly catching Hardy's pass at the top of the penalty area. After receiving the ball and turning around, Feng began to observe the situation on the field. After seeing that there were only two central defenders in front of him, he pushed the ball towards the opponent's goal without hesitation. Bang bang bang. Facing Dortmund's central defender who came to defend, Feng rode his bicycle and fiddled with the ball back and forth with the soles of his feet to distract the defender. When he almost reached the penalty spot, Feng made a fake move to shake the opponent's center of gravity, and then dunked the ball with his left foot. The football collided with Feng's right foot and then flew into the air, arriving at his chest the next moment. Feng turned around and volleyed on the football with his left foot. Bang! A crisp sound sounded, and the volleyed football drew a strange arc in the air and headed straight for Dortmund's goal. At such a distance, the Dortmund goalkeeper had no way to accurately judge the trajectory of the football and could only save it to the right. Although he correctly judged the direction of the shot, the high-speed football gave him no chance to hide it. Hey, the football flew straight into the center of Dortmund's balls, smashing a dent into the net. The ball went in. Freiburg started the second half and successfully regained a point with Feng's unreasonable volley. Now the two teams are tied 1-1. Feng's appearance changed the sharpness of Freiburg's front line. He relied on his strong personal strength to forcefully penetrate Dortmund's defense. Chapter 029. Four-person double team. Rui's powerful tackle. That's great, Feng. You are really the savior of the team. This volley completely stunned Dortmund. After the goal, the Freiburg players swarmed up and pushed Su. The wind surrounded the center tightly, and the celebrations after the goal were held. His goal swept away Freiburg's dull atmosphere in the first half and broke the deadlock that Freiburg had been unable to score for a long time. However, although the score on the court at this moment is still 1-1, Freiburg did not definitely defeat Dortmund, but the encouragement of this goal to the entire Freiburg team cannot be replaced while the Freiburg players celebrated. The completely opposite Dortmund players had shock and frustration written all over their faces. The originally good situation was gone in less than 10 minutes. This was a fact they could not accept on the field. Star player Fabian Rui turned around and spread his hands towards the Dortmund coach, saying that he had really tried his best to defend just now and there was nothing he could do to make up for it. Then, he came to the other defenders in the team and patted their shoulders affectionately to encourage them. Yet, so cool, you still need to watch the wind in adversity. Freiburg's coaching seat. Dennis and Steven, who had been depressed for too long, were finally released at this moment. Dennis even stood up quickly, sprinted back and forth in the coaching area, raised his hands in the air and cheered, his eyes filled with the joy of scoring. Putting aside the facts, Feng's personal ability is indeed excellent. After Freiburg tied the score, Dennis seemed to be in a much better mood. The initial nervousness was no longer visible on his face. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised and he began to talk to Steven gushed. No matter how negative his attitude is in the game, he can always perform well in the game. I believe that we at Freiburg will definitely achieve excellent results in this year's youth league, but before that, I hope the first team won't notice him. Steven nodded in agreement with Feng's excellent football level. He is fully qualified to enter the first team. However, if you want to enter the first team, you still need the approval of the first team head coach, but at present, Feng cannot get Strachey's approval. Strachey manages the entire team with an iron fist, and it is impossible to allow a player in the team who is passive in the game and has a chaotic private life after the game. Beep. Soon, the game started again. Although Feng's goal just now was wonderful, it is not worthy of Dortmund fans spending too much time thinking about it. There are still 30 minutes left in the game, and we don't know who will win. Who can guarantee that the goal scored by our opponent, Freiburg, will not be a goal that will tie the game? What's more, these fans are Dortmund fans. In their hearts, they hope the Dortmund U17 will win, so they will naturally pay more attention to Dortmund's performance. Bang bang bang. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. The mentality of the Dortmund players was not affected by Freiburg's goal just now. They did not rush to blow the counter-attack horn after serving, but patiently passed the ball in the midfield and waited. Take the opportunity. Not long after, Dortmund used the continuous maneuvers of the midfield to create space on the wing. Seeing this situation, the forward quickly moved forward, received an excellent through ball from his teammate, and then passed down the bottom line in one go. Another Dortmund striker who arrived relied on his strong physical fitness to grab the point in front of the goal and scored with a header. In the 70th minute of the game, Dortmund relied on this header to expand the score again and successfully take the lead, accompanied by the enthusiastic shouts from the spectator seats of the stadium. Dennis and the coach's bench felt a little restless. Even the original gesture of waving his arms could not let him vent his anger again. Although this game is the second game of the youth league, its significance is extraordinary. Freiburg and Dortmund, who both returned with big wins in the first round, have had a good start to the season, and this game will represent their subsequent direction. Is Dortmund, a strong youth team, continuing to take the lead, or is Freiburg, the dark horse this season, making a strong comeback? Everything will be resolved at the end of this game after another kickoff. The Freiburg midfielder was obviously a little anxious when the score fell behind. He gradually moved forward on the passing route, trying to forcefully find Su Feng and pass the ball to him. Although Su Feng does have a high probability of scoring when he gets the ball, high returns must come with high risks. When the Freiburg midfielder passed an overhead pass, he was intercepted by Dortmund midfielder Fabian Ruiz. The ball changed hands again. However, Freiburg's defense did not have any major problems. The defenders' sweeping area and interception enthusiasm were very good, and Dortmund did not let Dortmund seize the opportunity. Game time is 80 minutes. The Freiburg fullback seized the opportunity and successfully intercepted Dortmund's side kick. Then, before Dortmund could rush to press after losing the ball, he kicked the ball to Freiburg's captain Alger. Due to Dortmund's defensive tactics, there were not many players in the front court participating in the offense. On the contrary, the defensive players in the backcourt were full of layers and did not have good opportunities to play the ball. Just when Alger was in a dilemma, a loud voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Here, Su Feng, who was still pacing in the front court just now, did not press forward to maintain his position as Freiburg counterattacked, so at this moment his position was only in the vast midfield area outside the top of the penalty area. Seeing Su Feng raising his hand to ask for the ball, all the several routes that Alger had thought of for the ball were immediately rejected. He chose to pass the ball to Su Feng without hesitation. Bang! Su Feng only took a few steps forward before receiving Alger's pass. The moment he received the ball, he immediately turned around and headed towards the Dortmund goal. As Su Feng advanced with the ball, 4 Dortmund defenders, including Fabian Ruiz, immediately surrounded and intercepted Su Feng. Freiburg's first goal was scored by player number 87 Su Feng. Dortmund would not allow him to easily seize the opportunity and score easily again. The 4 Dortmund defenders who rushed in started at high speed and surrounded Su Feng in the middle. They were bound to give this kid a fight. Su Feng turned around and glanced at the situation in front of him, then turned his attention to football again. His firm eyes revealed a confidence of victory. Not to mention the panic of being surrounded by 4 people. The first one to come forward was Dortmund's midfielder Fabian Ruiz. After he was only one person away from Su Feng, he immediately took off his feet and made a powerful tackle from the side in an attempt to pass the ball at Su Feng's feet. Shovel down. No matter how bad the situation is, there is nothing wrong with rolling with a ball. In this area, as long as he controls the length of his extended foot and does not kick Su Feng's calf, he will not get a red card. Chapter 030. 1. Stop scoring. Dennis's repentance. Just when Fabian Ruiz was approaching, the keen Su Feng had already witnessed all this. He flicked the ball directly in the opposite direction of Ruiz with his right foot, then got up and jumped from Ruiz's jump on your feet. What? Fabian Ruiz, who rolled to the ground after the tackle, had a look of shock on his face. He didn't expect that Su Feng's reaction ability was so good and he could avoid his attack at such a short distance. Powerful shovel with your feet, but no matter what, he failed to intercept the football at the feet of Freiburg striker, and could only place his defensive hopes on the other 3 Dortmund defensive players. After escaping Dortmund's Fabian Ruiz tackle, Su Feng steadily advanced with the ball and was almost near the penalty area in an instant. At this time, Dortmund's second defensive member also got stuck in Su Feng's advancing route, preparing to use his strong body to stop him outside the penalty area. Bang bang bang, Su Feng moved the football back and forth under his feet. Under the crisp sound, Dortmund's defensive players lowered their center of gravity, trying to judge Su Feng's breakthrough route. But the next second, Su Feng made a fake move, kicked the ball with his right toe, and directly passed the football through the defender's crotch. Then he turned around gracefully and continued running forward with confidence on his face. If the ball hadn't come over, Su Feng's actions would have been extremely embarrassing, but the football seemed to have eyes, accurately passing through the crotch of the Dortmund defender, and reappearing at Su Feng's feet just in time. Su Feng, on the other hand, continued to run confidently and slowly without making any move to look back at the football, which was full of ridicule. What the hell? This boy from Freiburg not only avoided Ruiz's tackle, but also toyed with the other defender. What kind of strength is this? The Dortmund fans on the sidelines, after seeing Feng's IOSO skills, he couldn't help but let out a burst of exclamations, praising Su Feng's skills. This group of fans, although the home team is Dortmund, actually their favorite team is Dortmund's first team. Coming to watch the youth training team's game is just a way to pass the time in my spare time. Therefore, when they saw a young player with such dashing skills, their eyes were still full of appreciation, and at the same time they wanted to let him join Dortmund's first team, immediately accompanied by cheers from the sidelines. Su Feng on the court became more and more courageous as he fought after breaking through 2 players in a row. He has successfully entered Dortmund's penalty area and can shoot with his bow at any time to complete the final shot, but Feng did not choose to take a long shot and continue to advance with the ball. The remaining two Dortmund defenders had been preparing to cover on the flanks, but Feng's two dribbles were perfect, and they passed the ball directly on their way here. When they were still 2 or 3 meters away from Feng made another big move and moved the ball towards the Dortmund goal. In this regard, he successfully got rid of two Dortmund defenders again, completely facing the goalkeeper alone. On the coach's bench, Dennis's eyes lit up. He clenched his fists with both hands, stood on tiptoes and looked at the Dortmund goal. Hoping that Feng could score this key goal, Dortmund's goalkeeper saw the Freiburg striker forming a single attack and decisively gave up the idea of defending in front of the goal. He abandoned the goal and rushed toward the football. Feng observed the situation in front of the goal and saw an incredible smile on his face. When the Dortmund goalkeeper was only 1 meter away from him, he decisively waved the ball with his left foot, then cut in and shot. Bang! A crisp sound of touching the ball sounded, and Feng's shot was like a push into an empty goal. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. There is no doubt that this shot is impossible to miss. Tian, this shot was not very powerful, and the football almost rolled against the ground, but the slowly moving football still had only one result when faced with an empty goal. The ball went in. In the last 10 minutes of the game, Feng once again replaced Freiburg and scored this key goal, and he was still alone, dribbling the ball from near the top of the opponent's center circle. Running for nearly 40 meters, and performing a one-stop pickle goal, Freiburg equalized the score again, and the score is currently tied at 2-2. The final outcome of this game has still not been announced. Feng, who scored the goal, ran towards Jiao's wife's position and made a kneeling gesture to celebrate the Freiburg players who came running afterward. All high-fived Feng in celebration and praised Feng's incredible skills. "This ball is so beautiful." On the coaching bench, Freiburg assistant coach Steven excitedly slapped Dennis on the shoulder, gushing and praising Feng without hesitation. "If the Youth League selects the top 10 goals every week, I believe that Feng's goal will definitely be ranked first." After speaking with certainty, Steven immediately shook his head again. "No, if so, it can be said that every time Feng scores a goal, he can be selected. He is completely a football genius. Dennis, I advise you to give up the punishment of Feng as soon as possible. We should make him a player like this as soon as possible. The main force of the team, and tailor-made tactics for him." The tough-talking Dennis wanted to refute, but he didn't know where to start. In other words, Dennis, who originally had some complaints against Feng, was now completely impressed by Feng. It was indeed shocking to score a hat-trick in the first game of the last game, but the Hamburg they faced in the last game was not at the same level as the Dortmund they met today. Dortmund, which has many defensive talents, can be said to be the defensive ceiling of the entire Youth League, but this ceiling was penetrated twice by Feng alone in just a few dozen minutes. Slowly exhaling a breath, Dennis's eyes were full of expectations for the league championship. There was no way. Feng's performance was too shocking. He couldn't give up the league championship. "Don't worry, men, this season's Youth League will definitely belong to us." On the other side of the coaching bench, the head coach of Dortmund U17 angrily kicked away the mineral water bottle next to him. He couldn't stand that Freiburg, a new Chinese who was only introduced this season and was sitting on the bench, could actually go in and out of Dortmund's defense 7 times, as if no one existed. Moreover, in this game, he could not accept Dortmund losing to a Freiburg U17 team that ranked last season. Ike replaced the defender No. 16 and let the German forward number 11 go up. The Dortmund coach almost spit out fire in his eyes. He could not swallow the bad breath and ordered to the assistant coach beside him. "Substitution order." It didn't take long for the 4th referee to raise the substitution card. Dortmund made substitution adjustments in the last 10 minutes and was bound to get these 3 points from Freiburg. Plus. Chapter 031. Horrible through ball. Scouts' attention after Dortmund's substitutions. The game resumed soon. The Dortmund coach replaced a striker at this time with a very clear meaning. He did not want to get only 1 point in the hands of Freiburg, a seemingly weak team, but the trend of the game did not go according to the ideas of the Dortmund coach. Although the ball has always been at the feet of the Dortmund players, they were unable to organize a favorable attack. Every time the football came near the Freiburg penalty area, it would encounter a desperate interception from the Freiburg defense. Feng scored 2 goals in the front court, which has greatly improved the morale of the entire Freiburg team. They were unable to break Dortmund's goal in the front court, but they were still able to stop the opponent's attack in their own penalty area. The game time has reached 90 minutes, and it will soon enter injury time. Freiburg's midfielder seized on Dortmund's passing error and intercepted the opponent's pass outside the penalty area. The ball possession was changed, and at the same time, the referee also raised a sign to announce 3 minutes of injury time in these last 3 minutes. It can be said that all opportunities are in the hands of Freiburg players, and they can organize the last attack. All the pressure is on the Dortmund players. Captain Alger advanced with the ball, and after several skillful one-on-ones, he successfully brought the ball to the top of the arc in Dortmund's penalty area. Bang! Alger saw Su Feng turning around to catch the ball, and passed the ball with one kick. Su Feng rarely sprinted a few meters and caught the ball in front of the Dortmund defender. That's right, Su Feng, who had been pacing at his position, actually sprinted a few meters this time. After receiving the ball, Su Feng did not immediately dribble the ball to continue the breakthrough. Because he glanced at himself with his peripheral vision in front of him, Dortmund's players weren't already on guard this time and were always on guard against him getting the ball facing the Dortmund players who were sprinting towards him. Su Feng had a confident smile on his face. He dropped his shoulder to his right, forcing the defensive player to break while extending his right foot to prevent Su Feng from coming from the right. Break through and pass the ball, but it was obvious that Su Feng did not choose to break through from the right side from the beginning. Taking advantage of the opponent's unstable center of gravity, he immediately moved the ball to the outside with his left foot, directly getting rid of the opponent's defense. Bang! After passing the Dortmund defender, Su Feng did not choose to cut inside with the ball because at the moment of the breakthrough, Su Feng's eyes immediately caught a gap in the opponent's ribs, and a very penetrating through ball was passed towards the forward path of forward Hardy. Good goal, Hardy exclaimed in his heart, and then quickly started to catch the ball in the hinterland of the opponent's penalty area, and then drove the ball towards Dortmund's goal facing the Dortmund defender, who was a little slow to return to defense. Hardy calmly dribbled the ball inside, then turned the ball back and successfully created an open shooting path. Dortmund's goalkeeper was positioned a little closer to the left, and the space in the far corner was completely leaked at this moment. Bang! A crisp sound of touching the ball sounded, and Hardy calmly pushed the ball towards the far corner of the goal. As the football rolled to the far corner, everything else on the field seemed to have frozen in place. All eyes fixed on the football with the whole audience watching. The football quickly rolled towards the far corner of the goal. Dortmund's goalkeeper was shocked when he heard the sound of his opponent's push because he couldn't see the football at all. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. There were too many people in the penalty area, and Hardy did not follow the direction of his inward shot and shot to the right. He had no way of seeing the path of the ball by the time he saw the football. It was less than 4 meters away. From this distance, the goalkeeper has no way to make any effective save. Tian, the football hit the lower left corner of the goal accurately. Enter again. In the final stage of injury time, Su Feng's through ball once again helped Freiburg score the opponent's goal, achieved a 3-2 lead. Beep. The referee blew the whistle again, waving his arms and pointing to the center circle, indicating that the goal was valid. Fact. Why is there no one on the wing to mark him? Let him go forward and shoot so easily. The angry voice of the Dortmund coach sounded from the sidelines. He pointed at the Dortmund defenders without any cover-up. The disappointment in his own eyes. Why did you miss an opponent striker in such a key position? For such a low-level mistake, do you deserve what other teams call you? His anger was not unreasonable. Dortmund originally occupied the entire game. The advantage has always been far ahead, but since Freiburg replaced the Chinese player in the second half, everything on the court has changed. The first time they conceded a goal, it was because they didn't know Su Feng very well as an opponent player. He could accept it, but they let Su Feng pass over again and again, allowing him to rely on his strong personal ability, score 2 goals and passed an assist that almost killed the game. He really couldn't accept it, especially for the last goal. All the players' attention was attracted by Su Feng. As a result, no player in this key position was able to defend in time, allowing Freiburg's other forward to find an opportunity and take advantage of the situation. Yak, Wind, thank you for the pass. On the court, the Freiburg players once again fell into Carnival. Hardy, who had just scored, also knew that his first goal of the season was passed to him by Su Feng. After scoring the goal, he immediately ran over and hugged him. In football matches, there are winners and losers. The Dortmund players who were defeated all looked depressed and slumped on the green field. Even the star player Fabian Rui actually covered his face and started crying. He had always thought that he was a top talent in the youth league, but today's game wiped away these thoughts in his mind. Pitchside, in Freiburg's bench, Bach reluctantly followed his teammates and applauded the players on the field. Scored a hat-trick in the first game and scored twice in the second game. What kind of strength is this? He was certain that no matter how much Dennis disliked Su Feng's personal life and attitude, he would never be able to fulfill his promise of not letting him participate in training and not playing. Su Feng would definitely be Freiburg's absolute main force in the future, even though Su Feng may still have to adapt to the rhythm of Fort Everett. Who knows if Dennis will not design tactics specifically for Su Feng. On the other side, in the corner of the spectator seats, the group of scouts who came to watch Dortmund's Fabian Ruiz seemed to be looking at the male protagonist whose voice had changed. They all looked at Su Feng with shock on their faces. This black-haired Chinese teenager's performance in this game has completely surpassed Ruiz and conquered the group of scouts sitting here. Some people even immediately called the head coach of their own club, wanting to recruit Su Feng immediately. Chapter 032. Alger's Dream, the player who was snapped up not long after the game started again. Dortmund players went crazy and tried to counterattack in the last minute or two, but this unruly impulse only made things worse. Young players are still not calm enough to play against the wind. Beep. 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 Before the football entered the Freiburg penalty area, the referee raised his whistle and blew the whistle to end the game. Freiburg U17 defeated the strong youth team Dortmund in the away game. This is a result that no one could have imagined, but today, because of Su Feng's outstanding personal ability, the outcome of the game was changed. Dortmund lost at their home court. These young boys lowered their heads in frustration and walked slowly towards the locker room. They knew that when they returned to the locker room, they would definitely be scolded by the head coach. On Freiburg's side, the players are still sweating on the court and celebrating the victory. Thank you, Feng. I didn't expect that the first goal of this season was from you. And it was a winning goal. I have never played such a wonderful game. Hardy teamed up with the winner. Holding the captain Alger's shoulder, he rushed madly towards Su Feng, who was surrounded by his teammates, excitedly enjoying the joy of scoring his goal. Feng, you are simply the savior of the team. I never thought we could beat Dortmund. Scored twice in the second half and also sent a killer assist. Captain Alger was also excited and patted Su Feng on the shoulder, said with certainty, I believe that the head coach Mr. Dennis will definitely take back the punishment imposed on you. When the time comes, the three of us will fight side by side to win the Youth League Championship this season. In the future, we will enter the first team together and compete for the Bundesliga Championship. Alger's with a glimmer of light in his eyes. It has always been his dream for a genuine Freiburg native to join the home team of his city and help the team win the Bundesliga Championship and enter the Bundesliga. Now, he finally sees hope. If nothing else goes wrong, Su Feng will definitely be promoted to the first team soon. By then, this dream will most likely come true. What fuck? On the sidelines, in Freiburg's coaching seat, Coach Dennis couldn't control his emotions at this moment. We actually defeated Dortmund this season. This hardy game didn't reveal itself until the last moment of the game. Freiburg defeated the powerful Dortmund and got 3 points. This was an existence that Dennis had never believed in. Moreover, coupled with the situation of the entire game, even Steven, who was relatively stable on the side, couldn't help but curse a few words. There was no other way, and the situation on the field was like a roller coaster. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. After this game, I will definitely use Feng again. Dennis turned to look at Steven aside, with a bright smile on his face, his hands spread out, and his eyes full of admiration, whether it's a mess in his private life or a bit of a bad attitude in the game. Negativity, it doesn't matter, it's enough that he can bring victory to the team. As for the rest, Steven, I believe you can communicate with him well. I will turn a blind eye. That's fine, Steven nodded, looking at Su Feng on the field, his eyes full of relief in the 2 youth leagues at the beginning of this season. He scored 5 goals, what an amazing achievement. In the future, he will be sent to Freiburg's first team and lead the team into the Bundesliga. Problem, with the cheers erupting from the Freiburg players, the Dortmund fans in the audience left the Hubs-Op Arena after the game. They were quite satisfied with the Dortmund youth training team's game today. Although their home team's youth training team did not achieve the final victory, the youth league was as entertaining as some Bundesliga games. However, the group of scouts sitting in the corner of the court have not yet left the court. Instead, the pens in their hands are dancing rapidly on their notebooks. Freiburg U17 youth training player number 87, who serves as a forward and is 1.85 meters tall. He is skilled at his feet, has strong explosive power, sharp shooting, and has a strong ability to pass and threaten the ball. He came on as a substitute against Dortmund for 45 minutes and contributed 2 goals and 1 assist. Disadvantage is poor physical fitness, not active running awareness, weak defensive ability. Overall score 68 points. Has the potential to be a talented player. These are the words written in a notebook by a Real Madrid scout from the Spanish Serie A. The other scouts probably wrote similar things. Just from the smiles on their faces, you can tell how much they appreciate Feng. This time a forward player with excellent talent is not allowed to be missed under any circumstances. Even if his own club cannot use him, he can definitely earn a large transfer fee by selling him. While everyone was recording, a scout sitting on the edge did not follow the routine and actually picked up the phone, stood up and started dialing. Chairman, Freiburg U17, there is a young Chinese player wearing jersey number 87. He is definitely the best player I have seen recently. If he can successfully sign the contract, he can be trained as the team's main forward. After entering the professional league, his future worth will definitely not be less than 5 million euros. Now that he is not famous, he can directly ask Freiburg for an offer. When other scouts heard the voice, they all turned around and looked over. When the scout on the phone saw this, not only did he not feel embarrassed, but he directly speeded up his speech and persuaded the club's chairman to buy people quickly. After being stunned for a moment, the other scouts immediately stopped their pens and picked up their mobile phones to call the club, preparing to persuade the team president to buy the player before other clubs. They have even forgotten why they came to watch this game this time. Dortmund midfielder Fabian Ruiz, who was originally the object of observation, was completely ignored. At the moment, they only had eyes on the Chinese forward wearing Freiburg's number 87 jersey. It's not that their scouting job was incompetent, but that Feng's performance on the court today was so amazing that even Fabian Ruiz, who has strong defensive ability, couldn't cut off the football at his feet. He completely covered up the light on Ruiz. Moreover, apart from not being active enough on the field and not thinking defensively, this player is completely top-notch in the youth team in all other aspects. He can be compared with some first-team players, and his scoring ability is even more powerful no matter how low the future potential of this kind of spiritual player is. Capturing him in the youth league where he is not yet famous is definitely a sure profit business. What business can be more exciting than picking up a treasure after missing it? Chapter 033. Duisburg refuses? Football from other clubs. After the game, the Freiburg players, led by Dennis, got on the bus and returned to Freiburg. This big victory made Dennis, who is always serious, wave his hand and give the entire team a day off in this game. Feng's cool performance also earned him 3 cool points again, which made him feel more and more hopeful about his future. After returning to the training base, Captain Alger was going to ask Feng to go out to celebrate again, but he emphasized that he would not go to the nightclub this time. However, Feng naturally refused. First of all, not going to a nightclub is a complete waste of time. The morning game left Feng no time for his own special training. Moreover, he also had to prepare for joining the Freiburg first team in the future and needed to improve his other attributes. Right now, lying in the dormitory and playing games is a good choice. 5 p.m. Duisburg Club. In the head coach's office, head coach Hebstein, who had just finished the work at hand, leaned on his office chair and took a rest. After a while, after taking a sip of coffee, he chose to take a look at the message just sent by an old scout of the club before getting off work. Scouting report. This old scout has worked diligently for the Duisburg club for more than 10 years and has rich experience. He has selected some good young talents for the club. Hebstein has to pay attention to the scout report he urgently sent today. After looking through the scouting report carefully, Hebstein couldn't help but show a look of surprise. The scouting report sent this time is about forward Feng, who performed very well in the Freiburg U17 victory over Dortmund U17 this morning. Judging from his data and reports from old scouts, Feng is a player worth introducing. After training, he can serve as the main player in Duisburg club in the future. Moreover, this is a very cheap player. He is in the youth training team and has no reputation yet. He does not need a high transfer fee at all. However, Hebstein, who is rigorous by nature, does not choose to make decisive decisions alone. After thinking about it, he called over Ed, the assistant coach in the club who is probably most familiar with Freiburg club. Mr. Hebstein, why did you call me here? Before long, Ed sat down opposite Hebstein. I'm calling you here because I want you to take a look at this scouting report. As he spoke, Hebstein put the scouting report in his hand in front of Ed. Here is a Freiburg. I feel pretty good about the youth training players, but I want to hear your opinion. From Freiburg. Ed nodded, picked up the scouting report and read it, but only halfway through. Ed put down the scouting report in his hand, waved his hands, and said to Hebstein with a serious face, Hebstein, I am not very optimistic about this player. You should remember that I went back to Freiburg on vacation last week. At that time, I went to the Freiburg youth training base to meet my old friends. Dennis, he is the head coach of Freiburg U17. A trace of confusion appeared on Hebstein's face. He admired the professional skills of the old scout very much. Players who could be praised like this must have great potential, so he wanted to take a closer look at why Ed had different ideas from him. Ed leaned back in his chair, crossed his hands on the table, and had a look of disgust in his eyes. This Asian player named Feng must be the one who went to nightclub last time, right? Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. This player may be really good on the field, but his attitude is very bad. He has only been at Freiburg club for a month, right? He actually took the whole team to nightclub to dance. You said this? How high can the future ceiling of a player with a chaotic private life and violation of professional ethics be? Maybe his talent is indeed good and he can indeed come out on top in the youth league, but when it comes to real professional games, who can know how he will perform? What? Ed became more and more excited as he spoke. Besides, with this kind of professional attitude, it's difficult to obey the tactics and strategies formulated by the head coach, right? Hearing Ed's words, Hebstein couldn't help but nodded. Agree with Ed's idea. Moreover, in the scouting report just now, the old scout clearly pointed out that there seemed to be some problems with his player's attitude on the field. His movements are not aggressive enough and he rarely returns to defense. These performances can indeed confirm what Ed said. After lying on the chair and thinking for a while, Hebstein couldn't help but sigh. Okay Ed, this Chinese player from Freiburg, we don't have to consider renting him out, but Schiedhauer was injured this season and we have to find a good player to replace him on the front line. You should pay more attention to this matter. Due to the injury of the main forward this season, Duisburg has 2 draws and 1 loss in 3 league games. It is ranked last in the Bundesliga. It really needs to start working hard to avoid relegation. Okay, Mr. Hebstein. Ed nodded and agreed, and then left the head coach's office with Hebstein's permission. This afternoon, the scouting report on Freiburg player number 87 appeared not only in Duisburg club. This scouting report appears on the desk of the head coach of every major European secondary league club. Of course, this is true even for those wealthy clubs who love young players, including Real Madrid and Borussia Dortmund. The next day Freiburg club building first-team head coach Strachey came to the head coach's office early to prepare for today's work. The club's leagues at all levels have ended last week, so as usual, he will receive the player data reported by the statistician today. He still made himself a cup of coffee first and rested for a while before getting ready to work. However, before he could officially start, there was a knock on the office door. Seeing the hurried demeanor of the visitor, Strachey smiled and joked, "Bruce, what's the big deal that makes you so anxious so early in the morning?" Bruns waved his hand, sat down opposite Strachey, and said the document in his hand was placed in front of him. "It's not a big deal, but this morning, many clubs have extended an olive branch to U17 boy from our club, wanting to buy or rent him." Oh, Strachey looked confused. This situation is relatively rare in football history. At the very least, it shows that a talented genius has appeared in Freiburg U17. But as the head coach of Freiburg, he was not aware of the existence of such people among the U17s. Driven by curiosity, he immediately took the file, opened it and read it. Later, he discovered that the player that major clubs were clamoring for was actually the striker Feng that he had paid attention to last time. It's actually this Chinese guy. Strachey couldn't believe it. Feng only joined Freiburg U17 this season. Including last week's game, he had only played 2 games in the youth league. How might it be worth snapping up for multiple clubs? Chapter 034. Strachey's anger cannot be considered. Strachey, who was confused about the situation, did not rush to look at the quotes from major clubs. Instead, he picked up the data report on his desk and turned directly to the last U17 data. Last week against Dortmund U17, he played 45 minutes and contributed 2 goals and 1 assist. Seeing this data, Strachey took a breath and his eyes were full of shock because in last week's game, Freiburg only scored 3 goals in total. In other words, almost all of these 3 goals were scored by Feng relying on his personal strength. This kind of performance can indeed be said to have outstanding potential, and there is the possibility of being poached by other clubs. But the next second when Strachey saw Feng's running distance again, he was so angry that he slammed the data report in front of Bruns on the table. He only ran 1,800 meters in the second half? What is this kid doing? Assistant coach Bruns was surprised. This data can indeed make all coaches angry. Under the influence of modern football, which player does not run more than 8,000 meters in the entire game? He only ran 1,800 meters in the first half when he was fully physically fit. What's there to justify Putting aside these statistics, this young Chinese-American player does have some talent and scoring ability. After a moment of pause, Bruns's face was sullen and he was hesitant to speak. Strachey, who knew Bruns's habits, could tell at a glance that he still had some unspoken thoughts, so he turned to stare at him and controlled his tone to speak softly. We've known each other for how many years? Is there anything you have to say that you still can't say directly? Okay, I'll just say it in person. Bruns nodded, with some dissatisfaction in his tone. I'm responsible. The assistant coach of the U17 training said that the boy's attitude in the club was very unreliable and his private life was also very chaotic. Not only did he take the team members to nightclubs to drink, but he was often late for training and lazy. Strachey angrily slapped him with his hands. He slapped the table, his forehead and eyebrows knitting together in anger. Is there such a thing? How does Dennis manage the team? Strachey became more and more angry as he talked. This violated his principles of managing the club. He stood up and yelled loudly, we must take a closer look at his head coach's qualifications. With this attitude, no wonder the U17 Youth League ranked last season. Bruns waved his hand and looked at Strachey to persuade him, we are not discussing Dennis now. We should consider whether we need to loan this player out. After hearing these words, Strachey nodded, suppressed his anger, and sat down again, opened the transfer report that Bruns had just brought. It is impossible for our Freiburg first team to consider a player with such an attitude problem. In this case, loaning him out is of course the best way to deal with it. Bruns saw that Strachey and his having the same idea. He stopped talking and waited patiently for Strachey to check the transfer report in his hand. As the assistant coach of the first team, he is still very clear about the staffing of Freiburg's first team last season. Freiburg's players were out of shape, which led to Freiburg's unfortunate relegation to the Bundesliga 2. But no matter what, Freiburg is also a team that has been competing in the Bundesliga for a long time. They are very likely to win the Bundesliga championship again this season and be promoted to the Bundesliga. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. Moreover, the team already has Griffo and Roland Solway and others on the front line, so there is no need for a young man with no experience in major competitions. After a while, Strachey had roughly read through all the loan fees proposed by the clubs. He was shocked that many clubs valued Feng very much and even offered a buyout clause just as he was considering agreeing to the club's loan request. Strachey's phone suddenly rang. It was a call from Chairman Freiburg. The matter that Chairman Freiburg asked Stretch was also about Feng's loan contract because the relationship between Chairman Freiburg and Chairman Paderborn was very friendly. Chairman Paderborn called him personally and proposed to rent a young player, a 17-year-old Chinese player, who has never played in a formal professional league, is on loan for 1 year with a mandatory buyout clause of €2 million. The chairman of Freiburg thinks this is a loan contract with guaranteed profit and no loss. He didn't believe that a 17-year-old boy could earn €2 million in one season, so he readily agreed. Okay, the chairman has decided to loan Feng to Paderborn club. After hanging up the phone, Strachey had a look of relief on his face. Faced with the loan contracts provided by so many clubs, it is not an easy task to find the most profitable club. But now the chairman of Freiburg has solved the matter. Any problems will arise afterwards. There is no need for his head coach to take responsibility. Now, it's time to ask Feng what he thinks. Bruns, go to the youth training camp and bring Feng here. Okay, Mr. Strachey. After Bruns agreed, he stood up and went out into the head coach's office. Freiburg youth training base. At this time, the U17 players had completed their warm-up activities and began to cooperate with training by scoring, passing and receiving goals on the green field. Feng, do you know? I heard that a lot of scouts came to yesterday's game. Captain Alger came to Feng's side, doing passing training at his feet while looking forward to becoming a real professional player in the future. Do you think they will notice our performance and bring us to the first team? Alger, please stop talking nonsense. The last game was completely Feng's personal show. Even if someone else's football, if you want to find young players, you should first look for Feng. Even my winning kick is not qualified to be selected. Hardy passed a ball to Alger's feet and interrupted Alger fantasy. Feng couldn't help but feel a little distressed when he saw their appearance on this road to becoming a professional player. I don't know how many children with dreams ended up being drowned in the vast sea of people. Even if they are lucky enough to become a real professional player, not everyone can be firmly included in the starting lineup of the 11, and the watercolor manager may also be their end. Don't worry, Captain, you and Hardy are both capable. You will definitely join Freiburg's first team in the future. In the end, Feng did not speak out what was in his heart to attack these two teammates, but spoke out in courage. Alger laughed. and he began to really look forward to such a day. While a few people were talking and laughing, Bruns, the assistant coach of the first team, suddenly walked into the training ground. After chatting with Stephen for a few words, he walked straight towards Su Feng's position. "Hello, you must be Su Feng, right?" Bruns stood in front of Su Feng and asked in a gentle tone. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 035. Len Potterborn, Freiburg's plan. "Hello, who are you?" Su Feng stopped training and replied in confusion. Bruns chuckled lightly and explained, "You may not know me, let me introduce myself. I am the assistant coach of the first team, Bruns. I have never appeared in the U17. It is normal that you don't know me." After finishing speaking, after these words, Bruns turned his attention to the black-haired Chinese boy in front of him and looked him up and down. "Su Feng, right? The first team coach Strachey asked me to come over and invite you to his office. Come on." Alger was stunned for a moment, but he immediately came to his senses. "If you are called directly to the office by the head coach, doesn't that mean you are directly promoted to the first team?" After thinking about this clearly, his eyes showed great envy. At the same time, he also knew that this was an achievement Su Feng deserved for his outstanding performance in these games. He was not jealous, but he also longed for this day for himself. "I just don't know when this day will come." 10 minutes later, in the Freiburg administrative building, in the head coach's office, Su Feng walked in here with great expectations and sat opposite Freiburg's head coach for the first time. At this time, he had the same idea as Alger, thinking that the head coach of Freiburg's first team had taken a fancy to him and wanted to promote him to the first team. As soon as he entered the office, Strachey greeted Su Feng expressionlessly and motioned for him to sit down. Bruns turned around and left the office. "Su Feng, right?" Strachey still had no extra expression on his face, as if it was just a routine at this moment. "I am the head coach of the first team, Strachey. I have already watched your game videos. I believe that you must be the most promising young player in Freiburg's youth academy in the past 10 years. Su Feng couldn't help but feel a little surprised when he started bragging about himself as soon as they met. Even if you get appreciation from the head coach, you shouldn't be praised like this by the head coach when you come up, right? Should it be normal to announce his promotion to the first team and then supervise and train him?" Just when Su Feng was confused, Strachey suddenly changed the subject. "But you may not be so clear about the situation of Freiburg's first team. We don't have a place for you on the striker for the time being. In this year's summer transfer period, we introduced German strikers Petersen and Clay as forwards. Indenst, an Italian international Griffo, but with your current strength, you are still playing in the youth league, and there is no room to increase your goals. So we decided to loan you to Potterborn in the Bundesliga. What do you think, Potterborn, Lise? Does Strachey, the head coach of the first team, want to loan himself out? As for Potterborn, Su Feng is very clear about this club. It can be regarded as a lifting team. They were promoted to the Bundesliga last season and were demoted to the Bundesliga after finishing last in the league at the same time. They are brothers in need with Freiburg. Freiburg also fell to the Bundesliga 2 last season because it ranked second from last. However, when it comes to the Bundesliga league, the situation of the two teams is very different. Freiburg has won 2 consecutive games this season, ranking first in the league, and is expected to return to the Bundesliga again. But when Potterborn came to the Bundesliga 2, they seemed to be stunned. It was hard to win 2 games, so they went to the doctor for a sudden illness and came to Freiburg to rent players. Seeing that Su Feng didn't reply in a hurry, Strachey also continued to persuade. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. The chairman of Potterborn has promised us that their team currently lacks excellent forwards. Once you join their team, based on your excellent performance in the first 2 youth leagues, you are fully capable of competing the main position. After listening to Strachey's words, Su Feng was slightly confused. He did not expect that he would have the opportunity to join a German second division club to compete in a real professional league so soon. Moreover, it came so easily. As for Chairman Potterborn's only guarantee of being able to compete for the main position, Su Feng is not worried at all. In Germany, where professional football is so developed, and it is a cooperation between the 2 clubs, it is basically impossible to go wrong by entering the first team and starting to compete. So what else does Su Feng have to disagree with about the loan? Hasn't it always been his dream to become a real professional player earlier, enter the Bundesliga 2, and then continue playing in the 5 major leagues? Also, competition, Su Feng is not afraid of competition. How could a professional player with a golden finger with extremely high growth attributes be afraid of the wind and rain in front of him? This is not his style. Mr. Strachey, I am very willing to go to Paderborn on loan to compete in the Bundesliga too. Su Feng gave his answer with a smile. This also brought a smile to Strachey's face, and he quickly handed the loan contract provided by Paderborn from the table to Su Feng. He guessed that Su Feng would definitely not give up the opportunity to play in the Bundesliga too, and at the same time, this would also allow Freiburg to make a lot of money from this player after one season. Even if Paderborn does not like Su Feng and does not fulfill the first choice buyout clause, Freiburg can still sell a young forward who has played in the Bundesliga for a year to a lower-tier Bundesliga team or for the German third division team. I believe the price will definitely not be less than €500,000 by then. Okay, Feng, it's decided. You can take a look at the relevant matters in the contract. Your salary will be paid to you by Paderborn in the next year. If there are no problems, Paderborn the assistant coach of Born will rush over and sign the contract with you. Paderborn and Freiburg are not very far apart. 2 p.m. Bradrick, the assistant coach of Paderborn club, rushed to the administrative building of Freiburg club because both clubs had reached an agreement and Su Feng agreed. The agreement was signed quickly. Strachey looked at the contract in his hand, which clearly stated a rental fee of €200,000 and a buyout clause of €2 million. This made his original unhappy mood disappear after the signing was completed. Su Feng left the administrative building in Freiburg and went to the players' dormitory with Paderborn's assistant coach Bradrick passing by the training ground at this time. Alger was still training on the green. When he saw that Su Feng hadn't come back to train with the team today, he thought he had been promoted to first-team player, so he walked over with a smile. Feng, have you officially joined the first team? Now it's time to move into the dormitory. Su Feng shook his head and patted Alger on the shoulder with a hint of regret. No, I have been loaned to Paderborn by the club. I will fly over with my luggage in a moment, when the time comes. You join the first team, and we will only meet on the field. What? Alger almost shouted, his face full of shock. The club actually loaned you out. Chapter 036. Dilemma, or internal disputes. That's right. Su Feng spread his hands, indicating that this was not his idea alone. After thinking about the situation of Freiburg's first team, Alger could only express his understanding. In the end, there is indeed no shortage of forwards in the first team, and loaning Su Feng out will be more conducive to his future development. Well, brother, I wish you a successful start in your first season in Paderborn and make a name for yourself. Alger stepped forward and hugged Su Feng, feeling both fortunate and envious that he could compete in the Bundesliga too so early. Become the main player of a team. At the same time, I encouraged myself in my heart that I must work harder to catch up with Su Feng and play in a higher league with him in the future. After this episode ended, Su Feng quickly returned to the dormitory, simply packed his luggage, and followed Paderborn assistant coach Bradrick to the airport in the taxi. Bradrick sat next to Su Feng with a smile. I see that your teammates all call you Feng, so I will call you the same from now on. Mr. Bradrick, of course there is no problem. Su Feng nodded and smiled. Good wind. I wish you a smooth debut season in Paderborn. When you get to Paderborn, no matter if you have any problems in life or training, you can come to me as an assistant coach at any time. I will try my best to help you solve it. Bradrick said this enthusiastically, but at the same time, there was a little expectation and anxiety in his eyes. Paderborn's loan decision for the youngster from Freiburg was made by the chairman and head coach Gerald. The current situation in Paderborn is not optimistic. Although the players on the front line have many years of experience in the league, they still have many shortcomings in terms of scoring ability. In the first two games of the Bundesliga 2, Paderborn played against Bochum and Düsseldorf respectively, but did not score a single goal. This forced Paderborn's management to look for new players everywhere in an attempt to change the club's situation. Looking at Su Feng, although he performed very well in the youth league, he contributed 5 goals and 1 assist in 2 games. But the intensity of confrontation in the youth league is incomparable to the Bundesliga 2. Who knows whether he can bring out his full potential when playing with a group of veterans who have been in the game for many years. Paderborn's management can only hope that Su Feng is a talent that has been rarely seen in the youth league for more than 10 years. Otherwise, if he joins the first team, he will probably be ignored by everyone and can only become a mediocre forward. Although the Bundesliga 2 is only a secondary league among the 5 major leagues, there are still many experts in it. Isn't that player a former youth talent? But despite this, Paderborn could not make a better choice without him. The Paderborn club's financial budget is very low. They simply cannot pay high transfer fees to buy outstanding players from big clubs, and they can even rent some young players from the youth training camps of big clubs. There is nothing the monsters can do, and you have to find a club with a good relationship. Now that the season has begun, if the relationship is not good, who will loan their players to you? In this case, Feng is already Paderborn's best choice. Of course, there is also a lot of gambling involved in this choice. If Feng can't improve the team's forward level, then the club's only option is to fall to the German Bundesliga 3. By the way, Feng, read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels, Bradrick pressed. Clenching his hands, he calmed down for a while, and finally chose to ask the doubts in his heart. I watched your game and found that you don't seem to like running very much during the game. What's the reason? Is it because of poor physical fitness? Actually, my physical fitness is still very good. Yes, Feng slowly let out a breath, and finally chose to tell the truth, telling the new team's assistant coach all about his situation. I rarely run because of my playing style. I admire Berbatov and want to play according to his playing style. Now that I have joined Paderborn, I will definitely face an activity and running problem. It would be better to just talk about it up front. In the future, the coaching staff will only think that this is his playing style rather than a lack of positive attitude. After hearing this explanation, Brad felt very helpless. Of course, he knew that Berbatov was a world-class player, but he didn't really agree with his style of play and his philosophy. He is very skilled at his feet, so why can't he choose a better way to score goals? But now, he cannot immediately dampen the enthusiasm of a new player who joins the team. If we play like this, it can solve the problems the team is currently facing, which is okay. If not, it's not too late to discuss this issue with Feng. After the topic ended, Bradrick shut his mouth and did not ask Feng any other questions afterwards. The two got on a plane together and headed to Paderborn. Meanwhile, Freiburg Administrative Building, first team head coach's office. Bang, bang, a dull knock on the door rang quickly. Freiburg first team coach Strachey walked to the door extremely impatiently and opened the door of the office. Who is so rude? After seeing that it was Dennis, the club's U17 head coach, he did not take back the anger on his face. Instead, he frowned and said, "It's you, Dennis. Don't you know how to knock on the door? But, I just have something to do with you." After saying this, he turned around and sat casually on the sofa in the office, looking at Dennis with an angry look. After Dennis walked into the office, he walked straight to Strachey. Not only did he not sit down, but he shouted angrily at Strachey, "Mr. Strachey, as the head coach of the club's first team, when did you have the right to rent out my team's players without asking me?" Dennis' face was very ugly. He spread his hands and stared. Looking at Strachey, his spittle almost flew to Strachey's face. "Your hands are too broad, right?" Hearing this, Strachey sneered, and in turn asked Dennis, "Do you still know that you are a head coach? Don't look at how the U17s are managed by you now. They even went to a nightclub to drink together. Don't change the topic for me." Dennis was so angry that he forgot about his position and actually pointed his finger at Strachey. "I'm asking you now why you loaned out players from my team without permission." Chapter 037. In the first training match, could it be that Freiburg cheated me? Strachey calmly picked up his coffee from the table and took a sip, then spoke in a slightly mocking tone. "Isn't this simple? Does the club still need to keep a player who has a very negative attitude and has problems with even the most basic professional ethics? This kind of player will stay with Freiburg for his whole life. He will not enter the first team. Now that he has scored a few goals while he is young, isn't it reasonable to loan him out in exchange for the only profit? Furthermore, this loan was sponsored by the club president. He decided it personally. Couldn't he even decide the personnel changes of your team?" Dennis seemed to be angry and laughed. He lit a cigarette for himself, slowly blew out a smoke ring, and then continued, "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid, so easy to deceive? If a club wants to rent my players, shouldn't even the chairman ask my opinion first? I thought you would definitely agree." Leach opened his hands to show that he really didn't mean it. Afterwards, he thought about it and took out the data report of last week's youth training camp from his desk. He turned to the last page and held it in front of Dennis, trying to convince him with the data. "Look, this Asian player's running data in each game." Bang! Dennis, who was a little angry, actually slapped his hand on the desk in anger. With an ear-splitting sound interrupted Strachey, "Stretch, I don't care how bad his statistics are, as long as he can score goals in the team. He is an outstanding striker, and, do you know, he has played in these 2 youth games in the league. He contributed 5 goals and 1 assist to the team, and he contributed almost all the goals." Dennis, who was arguing loudly, accidentally glanced at the rental contract that was placed on the side of his desk. Before he could put it away, he grabbed the lease contracts and started flipping through it, making Strachey look very unhappy. After quickly scanning the rental contract, Dennis couldn't help but slam the rental contract in his hand directly in front of Strachey again. How funny, €2 million of right of first refusal. Dennis shook his head, looking like he was looking at a fool. Stretch, I believe that after one season, you will cry for your stupid decision. After saying the last sentence, Dennis turned around and walked out of the office angrily without giving any face to the first team coach Strachey, and before leaving, he even kicked the office door angrily. Strachey, who stayed in the office, had extremely disgusted eyes. Not only did the youth training head coach not give him any face, but he also scorned his threat. Stupid decision, how is that possible? He couldn't believe that a 17-year-old Chinese youth could increase his worth dozens of times in one season in the Bundesliga too. It's not that he looked down on Su Feng. He felt that even if Su Feng performed well in Paderborn, Paderborn would not be stupid enough to buy him for €2 million. After calming down a little, Strachey decided to take some time to go to Chairman Freiburg to file a complaint against Dennis. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. Whether it was a matter of team management or disrespecting him today, there was no way Dennis could escape the club's punishment. The next day the sunshine in Germany was particularly bright. In the morning in Paderborn, North Rhine-Westphalia, the first team of Paderborn club is undergoing a fierce intra-squad training match on the sidelines. Paderborn head coach Gerald was talking to assistant coach Brad Rick. Whether this kid can play in the game depends on his performance in the next 90 minutes. Gerald looked deeply at Su Feng, who was warming up on the court inside. If possible, he can come on as a substitute in the next game to adapt to the atmosphere of the Bundesliga too. Assistant coach Bradrick shook his head, with a little helplessness and anxiety in his eyes. There's nothing we can do. This is over. We can find the best striker in the lower leagues. Early the next morning after Su Feng went to Paderborn, the club immediately organized a training match. When a new player joins the team, the coach and teammates must become familiar with the new player's strength to see if he has a chance to be reused. What's more, their new player this time is a 17-year-old player who has only played in the youth league. Whether he can adapt to the intensity of the Bundesliga is still a big question. As for, in the future, will he be the core player of the team or the water dispenser manager? The results will all come from this training match. In this game, head coach Gerald still paid a little attention to new player Su Feng. Gerald had a habit of rotating his starting lineup as head coach at Paderborn. Of course, part of the reason for this is that there is no one general in the team who can act alone. If so, Gerald would of course build a team directly around this person. In this game, Su Feng was assigned to the red team led by captain Hunemeyer. Among the midfielders of the red team, there is also the team's playmaker Vidra. In this case, Su Feng was able to get more balls in the front court and show his strength. At only 17 years old, he has the opportunity to play in the Bundesliga too. I hope he can seize this opportunity. After the training match started, Gerald looked at Su Feng and couldn't help recalling his past in his mind. I think back then, when I was playing football, I was still playing in the second team at the age of 20, and I didn't even make it to the first team of the Bundesliga second division. Don't be too happy too early. I heard in Freiburg yesterday, this player has a somewhat negative attitude on the field and is not very active in running. Bradrick poured cold water on Gerald, his tone containing disdain for Su Feng. Such a player is not good at all. It's a tactic that suits our team. When I'm defending, I can't even retreat, and it's like there's one less person in the backcourt. When I'm counterattacking quickly, I can't keep up. Bradrick stopping what he was saying. He felt that what he said to Su Feng was too worthless and seemed a bit unfriendly to the new players. Gerald took a deep breath and looked a little ugly. Let's take a look at his performance in this training match first. In fact, after listening to assistant coach Bradrick's words, Gerald felt like I have a bad feeling he had never heard of a professional player having a bad attitude on the field. Isn't this equivalent to ruining one's career? But didn't the scouting report praise this young player as a genius? Could it be that we were tricked by Freiburg this time? That's right. If this player is really so powerful, why doesn't Freiburg keep him? Gerald became angrier and angrier as he thought about it, his brows knitted together at the same time. He silently vowed in his heart that if this was really the case, he would never interact with Freiburg again. Chapter 038. Teammates' doubts? Beat the ball. His eyes returned to the court. Although 17-year-old Su Feng is tall, standing next to these veteran players who have been playing in the Bundesliga for many years, his figure still looks a bit thin. However, fortunately this is only in the Bundesliga too. and physical collisions are not as intense as in the Premier League. Boy, where are you standing for a walk? How can I pass the ball to you if you don't even know how to run actively? Red team midfielder Vidra stood impatiently after the offensive organization failed. On the spot, he shouted angrily at Su Feng just now. He wanted to pass the ball to Su Feng to let him show off his skills, but after the passing route was blocked, Su Feng still stood there and paced, with no intention of running to create space. Someone who can be selected to play in a Bundesliga second division club is definitely not a loser. He must understand the most basic running skills, so his attitude towards the game is too negative, right? Facing midfielder Vidra's question, Su Feng waved his hand without saying a word, still going his own way. He walked around the court when Vidra was organizing the attack just now. There was an obvious flaw, that is, there were two yellow team defenders around Su Feng, and there was no chance to run and catch the ball, but he still wanted to pass the ball to Su Feng. He comes to express himself. Su Feng has outstanding abilities in all aspects. In the Bundesliga too, he is still slightly ahead of his teammates. He knew very well that he couldn't catch the ball just now, so he simply didn't run, lest he couldn't end the game gracefully. Playing for a Bundesliga club, I must seize this hard-won opportunity in order to pursue a higher football career in the future, but this meaningless performance is unnecessary. Seeing that the new player Su Feng ignored him, the somewhat eccentric Austrian snorted coldly, turned around and ran back toward his half to defend. In the Paderborn first team, head coach Gerald often changes the starting players. As a result, in addition to performing themselves seriously in the game, the players also need to be meticulous in daily training in order to be appreciated by the head coach and become the starter. Under such circumstances, the team's training match was full of excitement, but when defending, the players still knew the importance of their feet and would not easily injure their teammates by making heavy moves. What is this kid doing? Don't you know how to run and gain space? Head coach Gerald stood beside Bradrick and couldn't help complaining to him. In the first 10 minutes, he had been watching Su Feng's performance. Apart from some basic passing and receiving, he could no longer see some of Su Feng's other performances. On the contrary, it was as if Brad had heard that same as him. His running ability is very poor. This made him more or less have a lot of opinions about this young player. In fact, Bradrick thought the same thing in his heart, but hearing was false and seeing was believing. In addition to hearing bad things about the player at Freiburg, he also watched tapes of his games. When I watched this player's game video, he was still very skilled with his feet. He hasn't gotten the ball very well at the moment. Maybe he will be fine in a while. Brad talked for a while, feeling a little guilty. Said he was still responsible for signing this player, and he didn't want to sign a loser by himself. So he silently prayed for Su Feng in his heart. HMPH, Gerald snorted coldly. He almost lost his affection for Su Feng, and his voice was even more disappointed. Aren't there not many people with good foot skills in the youth league? Wait until you come to the first team. Aren't they all a bunch of soft-footed shrimps? Bradrick didn't know how to reply for a moment, and he scanned the court with a somewhat ethereal look, as if he wanted to find Su Feng's shining point on the court. At this moment, his pupils dilated slightly, revealing an incredible look. Look, the panicked Bradrick was afraid that Gerald would miss the wonderful moment on the field, so he quickly pulled down the corner of his clothes with his hand. Follow their gazes on the court. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. Su Feng, who was standing outside the penalty area in the yellow team's half, suddenly reached out for the ball. The red team's midfielder faced the defense with a ball, and it was difficult to advance with a ball. He had no choice but to kick the ball to Su Feng. After the ball, Su Feng actually slowed down. Yes, he slowly advanced the ball while looking sideways at what was going on the court. After seeing the young player, the yellow team's fullback showed a sinister smile on his face. He had been observing this lazy player for a long time, and now that he saw him holding the ball with great difficulty, he immediately sped up and came to Su Feng to defend. I want to increase his intensity and let him experience the defense of the Bundesliga too, so that he can put away his sleepy appearance in future games facing the opponent's strict defense. Su Feng's dribbling angle became smaller and smaller. The opponent was also experienced. He lowered his center of gravity and slowly retreated following Su Feng's footsteps, guarding against him suddenly breaking through from both sides. Su Feng chuckled, then transferred the ball to his left foot, pushed the ball suddenly and made a disguised pass, intending to break through from the left baseline area. Seeing this, the yellow team's fullback reacted quickly and immediately turned around and stuck to Su Feng, not giving him any chance to turn around. Seeing that the ball was getting closer and closer to the sideline, and there was no room to move forward, Su Feng suddenly stretched his left foot in front of the football and slammed into the front of the football with his heel the next second. Su Feng confidently overtook the car from the sideline and passed the defensive player, glancing behind him out of the corner of his eye with excellent coordination and ball sense. It is not difficult for him to make such moves as for the football. It is like tracking, changing the original rolling direction and passing behind the defending opponent. Heel knock. Did the ball pass? Without an exaggeration, members of the Paderborn first team bench sitting on the sidelines exclaimed, "This kid from the youth team seems to have something really good." Facing an experienced defensive player, he remained calm and used his skillful footwork to trick him. Gerald and Bradrick were also surprised, with a bit of shock in their eyes, looking forward to Su Feng's next move on the field. After passing someone, Su Feng accelerated a few steps and controlled the football. When he observed the situation on the ball again, the situation suddenly became clear. He didn't take a few steps and was already near the bottom line facing the yellow team center back who rushed over quickly. Su Feng first made a fake move towards the goal to pick the ball and shoot. Then he touched the ball lightly with his toes and the football rolled towards the penalty spot in front of the yellow team's goal. A forward from the red team has already been waiting here for a long time. The goalkeeper of the yellow team, because he was afraid that Su Feng would shoot near the baseline, chose to stand near the left post to block his shooting route, but in exchange for this result, the forward of the red team was like a push into an empty goal. Tian, a clear voice sounded, and the football rolled into the net from the far corner on the other side. The ball went in. Chapter 039. Goal. Dancers on the field yet. After scoring the goal, Su Feng stood there and raised his hands in celebration. He was also very excited at this time. This ball meant a lot to him and was completely different from before. This is the first time he has entered the first team and played with real professional players and provided key assists. Although this is just an ordinary training match within the team in the Bundesliga league, it can still be proved that his strength has fully reached the level of the Bundesliga league. Whether it is the skills at his feet, his passing vision and his football intelligence, it all shows that he can have a place in the team. Of course, Paderborn's head coach Gerald on the sidelines could also see his strength from this goal and was deeply impressed, allowing him to make his debut in the league faster. This is a big step in his playing career. Proof that he has successfully integrated into the Bundesliga from the youth team. Not bad, boy. The ball was passed beautifully. I didn't expect this boy to show us his skills when he came up. I'm looking forward to your future performance. The members of the red team all ran away after scoring the goal. Come over and give Su Feng a high five or a hug to celebrate. Although this goal seemed to be scored by another forward, the credit belongs to Su Feng, who broke through the bottom and passed back. They had to admit that the prelude to this goal was very exciting. Boy, run more in the front court so that I can pass the ball to you and you can play better. Midfielder Vidra, who had complained about Su Feng just now, also came over to high-five Su Feng in celebration. A little less angry, but he still didn't forget to remind Su Feng again. Of course, he recognized Su Feng's superb foot skills, but as a senior on the team, he definitely hoped that Su Feng could do better. If Su Feng can change his lazy attitude, Vidra believes that he will definitely become the team's absolute main force. In this case, Paderborn will no longer lack a main scorer and will have greater hope of successfully avoiding relegation this season. After all, no one wants the team to fall to the German third division this season. On the sidelines, Bradrick couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw Su Feng's wonderful performance, and said to Gerald next to him, "His performance just now was just like what I saw in the video. Maybe he can only perform like this when he has the ball." Gerald shook his head and continued to look at Su Feng without replying. He is quite conflicted in his heart now. In the past few dozen minutes, except for assisting with a ball just now, his performance was actually a bit poor. He seemed a bit invisible pacing in the front court. But I have to say that the assist he sent after the breakthrough just now was at the level of the 5 major leagues. Soon, the game started because they had just seen Su Feng's wonderful performance. The players on the red team once again had full confidence in him and frequently passed a ball to him. In this case, when the game lasted for about 40 minutes, Su Feng got another good opportunity. The red team's midfielder successfully brought the ball outside the penalty area with extremely skillful coordination. At this time, Su Feng was standing near the top of the penalty area. Although there were 2 defenders standing behind him, the distance between them was large and there was plenty of room to move forward. Here, Su Feng immediately opened his hands and asked for the ball. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. The red team's midfielder did not hesitate. Su Feng's performance just now was very impressive. He hoped that his pass could successfully get him an assist. Then, he passed an overhead pass, directly past a defensive player of the yellow team, and sent it to Su Feng's control range. After seeing the red team passing the ball to Su Feng, the winger who had just been passed by Su Feng as if reacting to stress, the defender rushed directly towards Su Feng. The humiliation just now made this team's senior lose face, this time on defense. He must go all out. After receiving the ball, Su Feng immediately turned around and took the ball towards the goal. However, the two original yellow team center-backs reacted a few seconds slower and were already left behind by Su Feng. Seeing that Su Feng was about to form a one-man attack, the fullback of the yellow team who came to take revenge was already stuck in his breakthrough route. However, this time he was reduced to a backdrop. Su Feng flexibly controlled the football at his feet, like a graceful dancer on the court. After getting close to the defensive player, he gently picked it up with the instep of his outside foot. The football jumped high and passed over the defensive player's head at the same time. Su Feng turned around flexibly and passed the defensive player cleanly. This skillful technique is like that of samba dancer Neumer. Bang! When the football dropped to a suitable height, Su Feng directly kicked up and hit the football with the outside instep. With a dull sound, the football drew a strange arc in the air, heading towards the far corner of the yellow team's goal at a very fast speed. The incident happened suddenly. The goalkeeper of the yellow team had already abandoned the goal and was ready to step forward to block Su Feng's shooting route, but he really had no way to do anything about this volley from the far corner. Tian, a clear voice sounded. Before the yellow team goalkeeper finished his saving action, the football smashed into the goal, and the net couldn't help but protrude. The ball went in. Su Feng showed off his skills in the penalty area. After passing the ball and breaking through the siege, he ended the game with a beautiful volley. Ah, boy, this goal is great. Su Feng, who scored a goal, had the joy of scoring on his face, and he celebrated enthusiastically with the red team players who arrived later. Goal. But after another forward of the red team came from the penalty area, he did not come forward to celebrate with Su Feng. Instead, he talked to Vidra with a gloomy look. I didn't expect this kid to be so aggressive in the penalty area. He scored another goal so quickly. He is only 17 years old. If this continues, the position of the team's main forward will definitely belong to him. HMPH, Vidra snorted coldly and turned to look at the striker, with a bit of disdain in his eyes. Kosa, we only worship the strong on the football field. Don't you understand these principles? If you don't want to sit on the bench, then prove your value to the team. After finishing speaking, Vidra turned walked in the direction of midfield to wait for kickoff again. Although Vedala has a somewhat irritable personality, he is indeed a pure football lover. The original teammate was about to be squeezed out of the starting lineup by a young boy. But his way of handling it was to worship the strong and encourage the weak. Without enough love for football, there is no way to do such a thing, of course. This is also because he does not want the team to fall into the German third division. After falling to the Bundesliga 3, their wages will face a significant drop, and their own worth will also be affected. He even faced being replaced by Paderborn and had no ball to play. Chapter 040. The assistant coach's method. The training match is in progress soon. The red and yellow teams continued to play. They all wanted to express themselves more in this limited training match and strive for more playing time in the next game. On the coaching bench on the sidelines, head coach Gerald and assistant coach Bradrick couldn't help but nod their heads in recognition of this wonderful goal. The performance is indeed wonderful. The skills at his feet and the awareness of handling the ball are at the level of the 5 major leagues. It seems that the players we temporarily loaned this time did not disappoint us too much. Gerald analyzed patiently, looking at Su Feng's performance. He squinted his eyes and said, the only problem now is his attitude on the field. In other words, can he actively run on the field, the way he is now? It is difficult to adapt to a Paderborn playing style. Can't we change him appropriately and make him run more actively on the court? Bradrick scratched his head and thought for a while, but couldn't help but still tell everything you know. Head, I think it seems difficult or even impossible to complete. Judging from the data I got from Freiburg U17 after the loan, Feng seems to have been playing like this since joining Freiburg U17. Moreover, I also asked Feng, and he said that he prefers this style of playing. Then how to solve it? Gerald continued angrily. Put him on the bench all the time? Then we never ask him. What is the purpose of Leborg loaning him out? Is it a charity for Freiburg? We are now like a mudboat crossing the river, and we cannot save ourselves. If there is no way to change the team's decadent situation this season, we will only weaken, be relegated to the Bundesliga 3. Bradrick patted Gerald on the shoulder and shook his head. No, there is another solution. We can try to tailor a set of tactics for Feng. Doesn't he like to run? We can let him stand in the front court and let the midfielder send the ball to his feet. Bradrick, what nonsense are you talking about? Gerald's face turned blue with anger. He could not accept the transformation of a team into this. He turned around, glared angrily, frowned and yelled, "This is gambling, not to mention that this tactic is not suitable for today's fast-paced professional games, and will affect the fate of the entire team. Don't you think it's a bit ridiculous to put pressure on a 17-year-old boy? Can he really lead the team to victory on his own?" Bradrick obviously didn't want to give up, and he took a gulp. After vomiting, he said slowly, "Don't be so anxious. You can replace him first to adapt to the rhythm of the game. At the same time, let him feel the roar of the fans on the field. Imagine a 17-year-old child. When have you ever seen this kind of formation? Therefore, he will definitely continue to change his playing style in order to get more playing time." Bradrick spread his hands and expressed helplessness. "This is already what we are now. The best solution. This is indeed a good solution. Paderborn now needs to avoid relegation, so they must have a player with outstanding ability on the front line." Su Feng was exactly what they needed, but the premise of this need is that Su Feng can adapt to Paderborn's rhythm and implement tactical strategies according to the head coach's ideas, instead of asking the entire team to make concessions for Su Feng. Therefore, Su Feng must run more on the court. But read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. Does Su Feng think so? Although he needs this opportunity to play in the German second division to gain more attention, so as to enter a higher league and realize his football dream, but he won't change the way he plays without strength. What is the use of entering a high-level league? Bradrick's approach seemed much smarter. He let Su Feng come on as a substitute for dozens of minutes. While adapting to the game, he could also improve his enthusiasm and let head coach Gerald see his performance on the field. If it doesn't work, Paderborn will not suffer any losses. Their forward line has almost no room for retreat, and if possible, Gerald might really agree with Bradrick's idea, regard Su Feng as the absolute core of the team, and formulate relevant tactics around him. Gerald was silent for a while, forcibly controlling his emotions so that his thinking would not be affected by these external factors. After a long time, he slowly exhaled a breath, as if he had figured out the pros and cons. "Okay, Bradrick, we have to try the method you said. Let Feng prepare well for the next game. In the last 20 minutes, come on as a substitute to adapt to the German second division game." Intensity. After saying these words, Gerald stopped talking. He focused all his attention on the court, thinking about the starting lineup and formation for the next game. Bradrick was overjoyed. He could tell from Gerald's expression that it was confirmed that Su Feng would come on as a substitute in the next league game. This is exactly what he wanted to see. In the following time, Su Feng did not get a good opportunity. It can be seen that due to his age, he is still a little unable to adapt to the intensity of the Bundesliga league. In some physical confrontations, he will always be at a disadvantage, but most of the time, he always relies on his excellent coordination to flexibly get past defensive players, and he seems to be relatively calm in catching and passing the ball, without the nervousness of a young player's first game. Sometimes when passing the ball, Su Feng can also find gaps that are difficult for others to find, and use a very penetrating through ball to tear through the opponent's defense. Seeing his performance, his teammates on the red team began to appreciate the young player more and were willing to leave the football to him. But this is a pain for another striker of the red team. The better Su Feng performs, the less likely he will be a regular starter at Paderborn. Of course, in Gerald's eyes, the forwards in the team are not able to secure a starting position for the time being. When the yellow team members saw this situation, they gradually changed their defensive strategy and kept a close eye on Su Feng. This also shows in disguise that when Su Feng appears on the court, he will use his own strength to bring certain advantages to the team. In Paderborn, a lower-tier team in the Bundesliga too, the entire team is worth less than €5 million. The technical ability of the players is entirely based on experience. It can only be used, and there is no way to dominate the entire team. Most of the time, they rely on their own experience, running, and physical fitness to play football. At most, they rely on some simple basic movements. Some of them can't even make a silky bicycle right on the field. Therefore, Su Feng's skills are indeed higher than most Paderborn first-team players. Chapter 041. The shot that shocked everyone. The head coach. When the training match came to the last few minutes, Su Feng once again got a good opportunity from the top of the penalty area. Red team midfielder Vidra intercepted the yellow team's pass near the center circle and immediately launched a counter-attack. At this time, Su Feng keenly discovered the loopholes in the yellow team's defense, flexibly turned around to create space, and at the same time opened his hands to ask for the ball. Bang! After experiencing the last goal, Vidra no longer worried about Feng, so he immediately kicked the ball and made a pass to hit the yellow team defender. However, he didn't seem to grasp the intensity of the pass well and passed it slightly forward. The yellow team defensive player left the goal, rushed out of the penalty area, and quickly pushed the football out with his head. The football quickly flew towards the penalty area. The center back of the yellow team ran towards the spot where the football landed, preparing to stop the football with his feet, but Feng, who was running slowly, had already appeared near the spot where the football landed before the yellow team player could stop the ball. Feng stretched out his foot from the side and lifted the football high over the head of the yellow team defensive player. Seeing my own goal wide open, the goalkeeper of the yellow team once again left the goal and flew towards Feng, trying to block Feng's shooting route. After Feng finished picking the ball, he took a small step to distance himself from the defender behind him, then stopped the ball. He did not immediately start dribbling the ball, but chose to shake the goalkeeper away and shoot instead. He stood there and waited for the yellow team's goalkeeper to approach. Several other defenders on the yellow team reacted and rushed towards Feng, with their hands behind their backs to block his shooting space. At this time, the yellow team's goalkeeper was less than 3 meters away from Feng. Feng shifted his body's center of gravity to the left, raised his right foot and shot with the outside of his instep, hitting the bottom of the football. Bang! The football jumped high and drew a beautiful arc in the sky. The goalkeeper of the yellow team raised his head high and stared at the trajectory of the football. He wanted to jump up and hold the football firmly in his arms, but the football was too high. He jumped up so hard that he couldn't even touch the football, but fell heavily to the ground after the kick went out. Feng's eyes were fixed on the football. Taking a shot near the penalty spot will test the player's sense of the ball and the strength of the shot. The football needs to be high enough to pass over the goalkeeper's head, and it also needs to be steadily hoisted into the empty goal when it falls, which is very difficult. However, Feng did not acquire the star skill of lobbing the goal. His grasp of this shot relied entirely on Van Persie's volley and his own personal understanding, but Feng felt that the feeling and intensity of just touching the ball was very smooth. He felt that this shot had a lot of potential to go in. After a good football forward takes a shot, he can feel whether his shot will go in or not instead of judging by the eyes of others. Forwards can form muscle memory for their shots through long-term training. The quality of the shots can be known the moment they take off on the court. Players from both sides were shocked by Feng's shot. They didn't understand that Feng was in this position. Why didn't he choose to cut inside past the goalkeeper and shoot into the empty goal, which was a better option? In this kind of attempt, the risks and benefits are simply not proportional. But what did Feng think? Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. If you cut inside and shoot, doesn't it require more running? It is the coolest way to choose a door crane to complete the door breaking. Here, many people's eyes were full of incomprehension. In their eyes, this difficult goal was impossible to score. At the same time, I also feel that a technical forward like Feng just likes to play tricks in the game, but what the team needs is goals, not entertainment. Just as I was thinking about it, the eyes of all the players on the field involuntarily got bigger, and their mouths opened wide enough to stuff an egg in. I saw the football spinning in the air, and actually stopped moving when it came to the goal. Leap up, then fall at an extremely weird speed. The football forms a perfect parabola in the air and falls rapidly from a high altitude. This goal is probably going to go in. When the football fell into the goal and bounced off the ground, a burst of fierce shots suddenly erupted on the field. The ball went in. This lob shot that puzzled everyone was still kicked in by Feng. Damn it! A central defender of the yellow team held his head and couldn't believe the scene in front of him, and even started swearing. Others are not much different from the performance of this central defender. The players on the red team even looked confused and ran over to celebrate with Feng. Is this Chinese kid a devil? He dared to try this kind of shot, and he actually scored it for the first time. God, I can't believe it. I really can't believe in my eyes. This goal is so wonderful. He can always make incomprehensible moves and shock everyone. With a player like this on our front line, I'm afraid we will never lack goals again, right? His flexible running is simply amazing. The opponent's penalty area is regarded as his own backyard. Feng stood there, waving his hands, celebrating the goal, and enjoying the praise of his teammates. Many times, after players score a goal, they may not feel much shock. They always see how exciting the goal is from the celebration reactions of their teammates. He enthusiastically high-fived and embraced his teammates. From the eager eyes of his teammates, he could see that these Paderborn first-team players had accepted him as one of them. This is the purpose for which he has been working hard to improve himself through special training. so that he can one day join the first team and be loved and trusted by his teammates. This feeling of satisfaction cannot be described in words. On the other hand, the players of the yellow team, although the goal was scored in their own goal, they still felt extremely happy. This is just a training match within the team, but this wonderful goal scored by a teammate can improve their morale. I guess that maybe as long as this teammate appears in the next game, it can change the team. In the Bundesliga too, there is an embarrassing situation without goals. Bah, bang, 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 on the sidelines. Head coach Gerald clapped with joy. This wonderful goal also shocked him. Bradrick, we may have found a treasure. Gerald turned his head, not hiding his excitement at all. Such a low price, but we have introduced a player with such a high technical talent to the team. I am looking forward to his performance more and more. Only now did Gerald put aside the hostility towards Frey in his heart, and did not believe that he had been tricked by Freiburg. This lobbed shot not only greatly improved the team's overall momentum, but also shattered his doubts about Su Feng. No matter how uncomfortable Su Feng's future performance on the field may be, it can at least be shown that Su Feng's personal strength is absolutely no problem. At most, the overall strength of Paderborn's midfield and defense is not as good as other teams, and they cannot cooperate perfectly with Su Feng. Unknowingly, head coach Gerald subconsciously regarded Su Feng as the core player of the team, and actually began to think about the entire team organizing their offense around him. That's right, Feng. His performance in this training match was indeed outstanding. Let him play in the next round of the league to adapt to the rhythm of the game. If the effect is good, I believe that the player will definitely not be relegated this season. Bradrick's face was filled with emotion. With a proud look on his face, although he was not the one who made the decision to lease Su Feng, he was the one who brought Su Feng into the club after all. Now that he has been recognized by the head coach, he will definitely not be able to bypass him when the club rewards him based on his merits. Don't worry, I will definitely give Feng enough time for his debut in the next game. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 042. The training match ends. The embarrassment in the locker room. Gerald nodded, thought for a while and then continued, but if you really want the team to successfully avoid relegation and achieve better results, you may still need to let him make some changes and follow up more closely. Team adaptation. Next week's debut, I believe he will realize the gap between the Youth League and the Bundesliga too, and then correct the bad habits left in the Youth League. These are the disadvantages that in the professional league, it is almost impossible to move forward, even in our lower-tier Bundesliga team. Bradrick nodded and did not continue talking. Gerald's way of handling this matter can be said to be excellent. He did not directly argue with the players because of some problems with the players. Now is the time when Paderborn needs an excellent striker, and it can be said that Su Feng is their last hope. Although this hope cannot work immediately, you can see it if you work hard. Letting Su Feng realize his own problems and correct them is completely the best solution. This may also be the reason why Gerald was able to lead Paderborn to achieve 3 consecutive jumps after the celebration on the field ended. It didn't take long for the Paderborn team's training match to come to an end. Su Feng was talking enthusiastically with the old players in the team, but what he didn't know yet was that at this time, he had already got the opportunity to make his debut in the Bundesliga league. This is a qualitative leap for a 17-year-old boy who traveled across the ocean to study and play football in Europe. It was also the beginning of realizing his dream. After the training match officially ended, Su Feng followed the first team players to the locker room to take a shower and change clothes. Players of the first team of the professional league generally do not live in the club, but choose to rent their own houses near the club's training base. Su Feng arrived at the Paderborn club last night and started an intense team training match this morning, so he temporarily stayed in the dormitory of the youth training players. However, he doesn't have many requirements for these. If it weren't for the team generally not agreeing to let him live in the youth training dormitory, he actually thinks that living in the youth training dormitory is also a good choice. While taking a shower, Su Feng took a shower and opened his attribute panel in his mind. Name: Su Feng, age 17 years old, height 186 m, shooting ability 71, long shot 73, volley 70, header 68, arc 75, penalty kick 68, technical ability 71. Ball sense 75, dribbling 73, ball control 70, short passing 67, long passing 68, physical ability 69, strength 66, speed 71, coordination 70, reaction 75, physical fitness 60, comprehensive evaluation 70, current chick value 13. In this training match, Su Feng naturally obtained the S-level evaluation of Chicago system, without any doubt, and successfully obtained at 1 point of chick value during the period from joining Freiburg to the concession to Paderborn. Su Feng relied on systematic special training to improve his attributes such as ball feel, dribbling, strength and endurance. Now the overall system score has also exceeded the 70-point mark. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. As the second-tier league in Germany, the overall level of the team in the Bundesliga 2 is still good. Except for some individual teams, with a score of almost 70, they have become the main force of the team in the higher Bundesliga. You need to wait until you reach 80 or above to become a stable starting member of the team. Su Feng is quite satisfied with his growth rate. At least he doesn't need to sweat extra on the training ground like other players in order to slowly improve his attributes. It can be said that daily training plus his own special training have greatly improved him in the past month. If he hadn't sometimes upgraded his useless attributes to endurance, he felt that his ball sense would have been improved even more. The intensity of competition in the Bundesliga 2 is not completely different from that of the youth league, but the gap is still huge. The opponents he faces are either veterans who hang out on the court, or youth training talents like him. Therefore, Su Feng still believes that in future special training, he should focus more on less necessary attributes such as endurance, and should improve his other attributes more. It seems that dominating the Bundesliga 2 is not as easy as imagined. Recently, the points from special training have been added to the most useful attributes for the time being. Moreover, just a volley seems to be not enough. Su Feng silently thought about the development direction in the recent period. His wonderful performance in the training match today was partly due to luck. His skills are indeed better than others, but there are still some gaps in experience and physical confrontation. But if they faced some Bundesliga teams that were much better than Paderborn, it might not be as easy as it is today. Therefore, it is urgent to quickly improve one's attributes and acquire more star skills. In the future, the attributes of special training should focus on the technical aspect. After washing, head coach Gerald chose to give the players a half-day rest. There will be no training in the afternoon, but the players will go to the treatment room to relax. When the other players heard the news, their faces showed great satisfaction. They played the second round of the Bundesliga League 2 days ago. It can be said that they haven't had a complete rest yet, so they practiced for another game with Su Feng, the newcomer from the concession. The strength of their body muscles has almost been fully strengthened, but Su Feng, who was standing in the corner of the locker room, frowned. Others have played a lot of games recently and need to recuperate, but what does he need? He hasn't completed his own special training today, so how can he still think about fishing in the treatment room? How can this be done? After most of the players left the locker room together, Su Feng stood there with a belly in his stomach, waiting for everyone to finish leaving so that he could go up and talk to the head coach Gerald. Feng, why don't you take action? Do you have something to say to me? Gerald saw a trace of doubt on his face when he saw Su Feng, who was not moving. Su Feng nodded and moved to Gerald. Yes, Mr. Gerald, I do have something to discuss with you. I feel that I don't need the afternoon recuperation. Gerald then narrowed his eyes and looked at Su Feng for a few times. He remembered that most of the youth training geniuses who came out of the youth training camp had some masochistic quirks, so he shook his head and spoke to him comfortingly. I know you have just joined the first team and there are many things you are not comfortable with, but training hard is not what I want to see. I will give you enough for your next game. Seeing that Gerald was getting more and more outrageous, Su Feng quickly raised his hand and interrupted his speech. Mr. Gerald, you may have misunderstood me. I just feel that I don't need to recuperate for the time being, so I want to go out to the club to handle some personal matters in the afternoon. Chapter 043. Are you ready to talk? You take me to play this dealing with personal matters. Gerald frowned, thinking that Su Feng came to Paderborn and temporarily lived in the youth training dormitory. He really needed to find a temporary apartment near the club. Okay then, I'll give you half a day off today. However, since you are not familiar with the place in Paderborn, let Bradrick follow you. If you need anything on the way, just ask him directly. Okay, Mr. Gerald. Su Feng nodded and agreed. He had a lot to do in Paderborn today, and he really needed someone who was familiar with the surrounding area to help him not only renting an apartment, but also getting him familiar with the surrounding environment so that he can take time for special training. After the discussion, Bradrick took Su Feng to have lunch and left the Paderborn club's training base. Paderborn's training base is located in the northwest corner of the city, with beautiful surroundings and convenient transportation. Many first-team players live in apartments 1 kilometer away from the training base. After Bradrick's brief introduction, Su Feng also chose to live in this apartment. The rent is not very high, and the professional players will also receive subsidies related to club renting, so Su Feng doesn't care much about the rent. After Bradrick drove all Su Feng's luggage to the apartment, Su Feng asked a question that surprised him. Mr. Bradrick, I would like to ask, are there any more prosperous entertainment venues nearby? Or a commercial street, sports park, etc.? Bradrick rubbed his head and was stunned. Feng, why are you asking these questions? Shouldn't you be concerned about other aspects of your life? Aren't these part of my life? Su Feng laughed dryly. 2 kilometers south from the apartment, there is a large square. It is a relatively prosperous place in Paderborn. Everything you need should be available everywhere. Brad thought for a moment and answered Su Feng's problem. After he finished speaking, he felt that Su Feng might have been in the youth training camp for a long time and his life was relatively restrictive. He might have come to Paderborn to relax. I'll drive you over right now. If you need to buy anything, I'll bring it over for you so you don't have to leave. As he spoke, Bradrick started the car and headed towards the person he just said drive to the place. Oh, I'm not buying anything, I just went over to relax. Su Feng shrugged, but Bradrick did not answer Su Feng's words. How should I put it? As Paderborn's assistant coach, Bradrick is very enthusiastic. During his own working hours, he can still find time to help Su Feng with chores. He is very helpful, but you just need to help me. What does it mean to be so enthusiastic? Su Feng is going to an entertainment place for special training soon, so he can't take him with him, right? In less than 5 minutes, Bradrick parked the car near the square and got out of the driver's seat. Su Feng frowned and asked doubtfully, Mr. Bradrick, do you also want to go to the square with me? Bradrick spread his hands and said with a smile, that's natural, I can help you solve all the difficult problems in Paderborn. Since you come to the square for entertainment, I am happy to join you, but I just want to have fun and relax for a while. Bradley. Mr. K, you can go back to work. Su Feng sneered and said a little embarrassedly. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. I don't have any work this afternoon, so I can just have some fun and relax with you. Aren't the entertainment activities you want to do informal? Bradrick said, with a trace of doubt in his eyes, but then he seemed to understand, turning into a look that understands you. Feng, you are young, and you are at the age when you are in love, but you should not be infected with those bad habits yet, right? As a professional player, it is best to draw boundaries with women. You are young and it is the beginning of your career. Seeing that Bradrick was thinking wrongly, Su Feng quickly interrupted him and said, it's not what you think, I just wanted to go to the mall to relax for a while. Mr. Bradrick, if you really have nothing to do, of course you are welcome to come with me. Okay, of course I will go with you. Bradrick immediately agreed, and then stood by the car and waited. Let Su Feng take him there. As a competent assistant coach, you must include 2 things. First of all, you need to be enthusiastic as a person, and secondly, you need to handle the relationship with the players well. This is the principle that Bradrick adheres to. Of course, it is also possible that many assistant coaches of the team think so. They treat talents of teams like Su Feng with extra enthusiasm and care. Su Feng said he wanted to go to the mall to relax, so it made sense for Bradrick to follow him. Getting to know Su Feng, a newcomer who has just joined the team, and becoming familiar with Su Feng's interests and hobbies is very good for maintaining the relationship between the two of them. At the same time, of course, he was also a little afraid that Su Feng would go back to the red light district in the city. He would go astray at a young age and become addicted to the colorful world of feasting and entertainment, which would affect his career. The two of them walked into the square together and wandered around. At this moment, Bradrick saw Su Feng coming to the shopping mall. His face was no longer so cautious. He bought a cup of coffee and followed Su Feng to observe his next move. After strolling around the mall for a while, Su Feng went to the entertainment area upstairs and plunged into a slot billiards club. Brad didn't understand this, so he froze in place in shock. During the speechless journey just now, he had already thought about what he would say after being taken to a nightclub for drinking by Su Feng, and he was also ready to tell Su Feng about his great football career, but he had already finished the draft. But he didn't expect Su Feng to play this game in the afternoon. Su Feng asked for a private room in the slot billiards club and played slot with Bradrick. Bradrick is not very old, only in his 30s. which is the time when a man's career is progressing. Therefore, he is not like many middle-aged and elderly Europeans who love the sport of slack, but he has never eaten pork. He still knows the pig run, simple slack rules and pole techniques. As for Feng, he often played billiards in China in his previous life and had never played in Mönchengladbach, so he played very smoothly. It was detected that the host had played slack for 20 minutes, shooting ability plus 0.01, waiting until dark. Feng spent more than 3 hours at the slack billiards club before talking to Bradley. Kay left the square on the way to send Feng back to the apartment. Bradrick had finally spent a happy working day. He said with a smile on his face, "Feng, I didn't expect you to like slack. I remember that there used to be a slack in the entertainment room of the club. It's a table, but because no one has played for a long time, it is probably broken. I will discuss with the logistics department tomorrow to replace it with a new one for you. Next time you need to rest and have fun, just go to the club to play. Just go home again, there's no need to travel so far." Chapter 044. Recreation Room? Vidra's reminder. The next day, Paderborn's first-team players had a boring day of technical training. After the training, many first-team players chose to go home directly instead of staying at the training base for additional training. After eating, Feng came to the canteen of the training base alone, planning to go to the recreation room to play for a while. After dinner today, assistant coach Bradrick came over to tell Feng that the club's logistics department had replaced the slack table in the recreation room with a new one in the afternoon, so that he no longer had to travel far to relax in the square. Feng was very grateful for this move. This not only shows Bradrick's lofty quality, but also represents the importance Paderborn club attaches to him. "Feng, did you also finish your meal in the training base cafeteria tonight?" Just as he was thinking about it, suddenly the first-team player Vidra sat down next to Feng with the dinner plate in his hand. "Look at this posture. Are you planning to go to the training base for extra training at night?" After yesterday's training match, most of the players in Paderborn's first team have recognized this young player. At least his skills are already here. Able to be at the forefront of a team. Therefore, even Vidra, who had the weirder temper in the team, sat next to him and struck up a conversation with him during the meal. "I was used to living in a dormitory in the youth training camp. I didn't really like to cook and eat alone, so I simply ate in the training base cafeteria. I probably won't go to the extra training for a while, and I'm going to go to the club's entertainment room to relax." Vidra was a little surprised when he heard Feng's words today. He is 23 years old. He has been joining the first team for so many years and has always maintained the habit of extra training. The competition in professional football is very cruel, and every year a group of little monsters emerge from the major youth training camps. But among this group of players, there are only a handful of players who can reach the peak at a young age like Messi and Bellingham, and rely on their outstanding talents to become the absolute core of the team. Most people grow up step by step with a dream of football. And additional training is the catalyst for these hard-working players to realize their dreams. Therefore, Vidra thought that Feng was also a genius who stood out from the youth training camp through hard training, but his plan to go directly to the recreation room to relax in the evening left Vidra confused. "Are you still going to the recreation room to rest? Did the team just recover in the treatment room yesterday?" Vidra said in confusion. Feng touched his head. He didn't know what Vidra meant by asking this, so he could only reply with a smile. "Yesterday, I asked for leave from Mr. Gerald for the recovery in the infirmary. I just arrived in Paderborn and there were a lot of trivial things to deal with." Vidra nodded, then changed the topic with Feng and talked about interesting things in the team. After eating, the two went to the training base together, except that Vidra went to the strength training room and Feng went to the recreation room. While Vidra was sweating in the weight training room, Feng was leisurely playing slack for his special training. The next day, when the afternoon training was over, Vidra took the initiative to walk in front of Feng and chuckled. "Feng, you will still eat in the training base cafeteria today, right?" Together, Feng nodded. "Okay, Mr. Vidra." Then, the two came to the cafeteria together and sat together. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. "Feng, what are you going to practice tonight? Could it be the shooting practice in the afternoon?" Vidra started the conversation first. In addition to professional players having special talents in certain aspects, many other aspects are acquired through continuous training. When Vidra saw Feng's skillful foot skills and frequently surpassed others on the field, he naturally felt a little envious. Imagine how explosive a performance would be if a midfield playmaker continuously passed the opponent's defensive players in the midfield and then sent a fatal through ball. As for Vidra's frequent conversations with Feng, He actually had some selfish motives. He wanted to build a good relationship with him and asked Su Feng if he had any different training methods in this regard. After all, every youth training camp will have some differences when training players in terms of learning. Vidra doesn't care how many years older he is than Su Feng. He only values strength on the court. Isn't it too much to seek advice from someone who is technically stronger than yourself? Hearing the sound, Su Feng's movement of holding the spoon in his right hand stopped abruptly, and he froze on the spot, making a surprised sound. When did I say I was going to train at night? However, Su Feng reacted after a few seconds. It turns out that Vidra thought of him as a training fiend like Hardy. If there was no system, Su Feng believed that he would most likely sweat his sweat on the green field and train hard for his dream. However, there is no if. He has a system. What more training is needed? Could it be that the slop in the recreation room isn't fragrant enough? Mr. Vidra, you may have misunderstood me. I stated that training based tonight not to go to the training ground to train, but to go to the recreation room to take a rest. Su Feng controlled his facial expression and looked serious. Said, you want to rest in the recreation room? Vidra couldn't believe his ears. Su Feng's performance made Vidra believe that he was not a player who had just entered the first team from the training camp at the age of 17, but an old player who was at his peak and enjoying happy football. How can there be young and energetic players who don't practice at the training ground? Of course, the group of players who generally perform well and are not aggressive are another matter. Yes, Su Feng replied affirmatively again, which made Vidra look at him a little abnormally. However, after thinking about it, it is quite normal for a young player who has just entered the first team to be lazy. After all, at his age, it is very rare to enter the first team, and it is normal to be young and frivolous. Feng, while you are still young, I still hope that you can focus more on practicing football. Because I know that your dream will not stop at playing in the Bundesliga second division. Vidra gently pointed his finger. He tapped the table, thought for a while, and sighed. Su Feng knew that Vidra was also doing it for his own good, but he didn't know that he had systematic blessings. He was able to take the initiative to ask Su Feng to train seriously, and he was a deep friend. Don't worry, I'm measured. After hearing Su Feng's words, Vidra stood up and nodded solemnly, turned around and left the cafeteria, heading to the training ground alone. When this situation happened for the third time, Vidra finally couldn't bear the confusion in his heart and came up with the idea of going to the entertainment room with Su Feng. Su Feng suppressed the smile in his heart and agreed to Vidra come to the recreation room. Seeing Su Feng pick up the cue with a familiarity, lying in front of the table and playing slot leisurely, Vidra looked shocked, stared at Su Feng and made a confused sound. Feng, have you been playing slot in the entertainment room these days? Chapter 045. Vidra has an epiphany, and the two are missing training. Su Feng put away the club in his hand and answered Vidra's question with a smile while drinking water. Yes. When I was in China, I had a wide range of interests and hobbies, but I finally chose football, my favorite. Although I have become a professional player now, I still participate in some other entertainment activities to relax in my free time. Physically and mentally, Vidra opened his eyes wide and froze on the spot. He wanted to refute what Su Feng said. Shouldn't a professional football player put football first? The career time of professional athletes is not long. Most players will choose to retire in their 30s and waste their time in their youth. This will undoubtedly let down their careers, but thinking about it carefully, Su Feng's explanation was not unreasonable, or he said that differences were not mutually beneficial. He did not want to continue arguing with Su Feng on this issue. Actually, many sports are similar. Seeing Vidra with a surprised look on his face, Su Feng turned around and lay down on the cereal table, straightening his posture and aiming at the black ball on the table. You see, although it seems that I am playing slock, there is a lot of knowledge in slock that is the same as football. You have to stretch your stick and use the black ball to hit other balls into the holes. It is similar to the organization on the football field. A fence has the same purpose, doing boring training all day long. Sometimes changing to another kind of sports for entertainment can actually give you more insights into football. As the #1 sport in the world, football can indeed learn something from other ball sports. However, this is more of Su Feng's own understanding. If he told these thoughts to a professional football coach, he would definitely be laughed at. Not everyone has a system like Su Feng. This idea may only be understood by people like him who spend all day in the entertainment room and experience different entertainment projects. When Vidra entered the recreation room, he was very resistant to Su Feng's lazy behavior. He believed that an excellent football player should rely on hard training and continuous growth with his own sweat. But if you think about it carefully, Su Feng's skills are stronger than mine. At just 17 years old, he was already thriving in the Bundesliga too. Playing off Paderborn's defense, there should be nothing wrong with what a person of this strength says, right? For example, the top student tells you that you should not keep answering questions during recess. Sometimes you should relax and read some extracurricular books to broaden your horizons. Doing so can sometimes improve your academic performance. If parents or teachers heard such words, they would definitely judge them as lies, but they are just outsiders. The students didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with it, and they even gave a few words of praise to praise the top student's ideas. At this time, Vidra was in this state of mind. After training for a long time, his skills were not as good as those of a young man. He had to suspect that this was the secret to Feng's soaring skills. In an instant, he suddenly felt enlightened and enlightened. He had enlightenment. It is indeed a good choice to relax in the entertainment room. Meanwhile, in the Paderborn administration building, head coach Gerald is in the office, watching videos of Sandhausen Club's first 2 league games with assistant coach Bradrick to formulate plans for the next game tactics. After a while, after watching the game video over and over again, the two of them did not come up with a mutually agreed upon idea. Seeing this, Gerald stood up, stretched, and said to Bradrick with a slightly tired look on his face, "Man, let's end it at this point today and go out to have dinner together, okay, head?" Bradrick also had a tired look on his face. Today he had been discussing with head coach Gerald in the office all afternoon and even missed lunch along the way. The two continued to explain their opinions, hoping to make the other party accept their opinions. "Hey, why didn't you see Vidra practicing on the training ground today?" Bradrick accidentally glanced into the training ground and found that there was no one in the huge training ground with dim lights. Usually, one person can always be seen on the training ground at this time, and that is the team's organizational core, Vidra. I don't know why Vidra didn't come to the training ground today. It's probably because he was training indoors tonight, or he had something to do and didn't come to the training base for extra practice. Bradrick shook his head, his eyes on the training ground. He swept up and down, seeming to be looking for Vidra's figure. "Don't look, the lights at the training ground are turned off. It's impossible for anyone to train with the lights off. Nowadays, among the young players in this group, there are very few who can insist on training seriously every day," Gerald said with a hint of tone in his tone. There is a little disappointment, which seems to be dissatisfaction with the Paderborn players. As a head coach of a team, generally speaking, he likes the players of his team very much. It can only be said that the players of Paderborn in the past 2 seasons have made their head coach feel disappointed. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. After just 1 season in the Bundesliga, they were relegated with last place. What's even more outrageous is that they were unable to gain a foothold in the Bundesliga in the new season. Is this the performance of a team that has just been relegated from the Bundesliga? After thinking for a while, Gerald seemed to have thought of something again, and asked Bradrick beside him, "By the way, what does Feng do every night? Do you come to the training base to train?" "Young people like them, I just like to torture myself when I'm young." Tao, Feng may be different in this regard. "Do you remember last time, Feng took me to a nearby square to play Slock all afternoon, which shocked me, and in the past few days, I didn't see Feng when I walked from the training base every day. I guess he doesn't have the habit of training at night." Gerald spread his hands and spoke in disbelief. "How is it possible? Then why is his technique so good? Could it be that he was trained more solidly in the youth training camp?" "I think it can only be explained this way," Bradrick nodded and replied unconfidently. "In the Paderborn youth training base, this kind of training life is repeated every day. This day during the first team training in the morning, head coach Gerald and assistant coach Bradrick finally unified their opinions and determined the tactics for the 3rd round of the Bundesliga 2 against Sandhausen for Paderborn, who often rotates the starting lineup. This can be regarded as completing the most difficult level before the game. At this time, there is not much time left before the start of the 3rd round. The next step is to select the starting players suitable for this lineup. Among the first-team players, Gerald also decided to cancel the original physical training this afternoon and instead go to the locker room to explain Sandhausen's playing style and tactics for the next game. "Feng, my skills in beating Slock are quite good now, right? I feel that if I perform well, you might not be able to beat me." In the entertainment room of the Paderborn training base, Vidra held the club in his hand, with a proud smile on his face. Standing next to Feng and talking to him, Feng nodded solemnly and said affirmatively, "Of course. You have spent almost all your rest time these days playing Slock. How can it be possible without improving your skills? How about giving it a try?" "No problem, there isn't much break time at noon. And even if the lunchtime is full, it's probably only 2.5 hours. Vidra chose this moment to have a battle with Feng. It could be said that time was running out, but recently, he has become addicted to playing slock with Feng. He has discovered ways to gain happiness other than football, and he has gradually become addicted. Moreover, Feng actually made several mistakes in this game, and Vidra was unwilling to let Feng go. The time flew by and it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The Paderborn first-team players were sitting in the locker room under the leadership of head coach Gerald. "Here, is everyone here?" Gerald stood in front of the screen in the locker room and asked the team captain seriously. After here inspected the locker room, he said bluntly, "We still have to wait for Vidra to follow suit. I don't know where the two of them have gone. I don't know." Gerald was a little unhappy. Asked everyone. "I don't know if it was the first-team player who was whispering below. After lunch, I seemed to see the two of them going to the recreation room together." When he heard about the recreation room, Gerald instantly felt his scalp numb. These days, assistant coaches have given him feedback. Vidra and Feng spent most of their rest time in the recreation room because both players were young rookies from Paderborn, and it was time for rest. Gerald chose to turn a blind eye all the time, but what did it mean today? "Are you late for the tactical explanation?" Thinking of this, his face darkened, his forehead and eyebrows knitted together, and after an angry order to Bradrick, he strode towards the door. "You lead others to watch the Sandhausen game video here first, and I'll go to the recreation room." Chapter 046. The roster is announced and Feng is selected. A minute later, head coach Gerald kicked open the door to the recreation room in anger. As expected at this moment, Feng and Vidra were having an exciting game around the slock table. "What time is it now, and you two are still playing slock in the recreation room?" Gerald stood at the door, pointing fiercely at the clock hanging on the wall, not hiding the anger in his eyes, and scolded sternly. He asked, "Can you have a basic sense of time? Don't you know that there will be a tactical analysis in the afternoon?" Vidra's eyes were a little flustered when he encountered this kind of scene for the first time. "We are not going to do strength training in the afternoon. Aren't you guys looking at the notifications on your phones?" Gerald frowned and roared loudly, foam flying from his mouth. "The coaching staff and other players are waiting for you two in the locker room. But it's better for you two boys to come to the recreation room and fight slock. You're even late for tactical analysis. Is this what a professional player should do?" Feng has had plenty of rest time recently. There is time to complete special training in the recreation room. Therefore, he generally does not choose to do things like late training. It is completely unnecessary, but today, it was really just a coincidence. Both he and Vidra were focused on slock, not paying attention to the time, and neither of them opened their phones at all. "Who is a serious person looking at his cell phone when playing ball?" Head coach, "Actually today was an accident. I was playing with Vidra and I accidentally didn't pay attention to the time." Feng scratched his head and looked at Gerald to speak. He was not as panicked as Vidra. After all, this was not the first time he had done something like this. "Is today just an accident?" Gerald seemed to be angry. After sneering, he glared at the two of them in disgust and continued, "Do you think I don't know what you have been doing recently? Yatwo, during the rest time, you spend all your time in the recreation room playing slock. Can't you put this little thought into football? Vidra, I remember you used to be very diligent. How come you have become like this now? Don't think you are the main midfielder of the team, so you can act so recklessly. As long as your performance is not good that day, I can replace you at any time. As for Feng, I did tell you that I will let you play in the next league game. It's my first appearance as a substitute to get used to the intensity of the Bundesliga too, but your performance really disappoints me." After Gerald finished this call, he felt that it was not enough to relieve his anger. After thinking for a while, he turned grim again. Then he roared angrily, "You two, hurry up and get back to the locker room. After the evening training, come to the training ground for 2 more hours." Vidra sighed and nodded to head coach Gerald. In order to receive punishment from Feng left the recreation room and headed to the locker room. The next day Feng, who practiced for 2 hours last night, still felt a little tired. He was used to relaxing at night, so he couldn't accept the life of a training maniac. He still likes to spend time in the entertainment room and increase his attributes easily. As for the intensity of daily training, it is indeed much more intense than that of the youth team. However, as a professional player, he still enjoys this kind of time, but it would not be enough if he spends more time. This is because during daily training, Feng's attitude is very down to earth, which is completely different from his attitude in the game. People Let the other team members gossip about him. Nowadays, the professionalization of European football is highly developed. The training content of every professional team almost always includes the team's physical training, which of course includes cardiopulmonary capacity and endurance training. But Su Feng's performance in these trainings was not inferior to other members of the team, but on the field, Su Feng was not running actively, and his extremely weak body seemed to be engraved in the hearts of other teammates. This made them wonder why Su Feng was so inactive in training matches. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. The only thing that can explain it is that his professional attitude is very poor, and he is unwilling to run much in order to score goals on the field. But it happens that such a person can perform well in technical training and bombard him in training matches. They couldn't figure out the reason. Some people chose to ask Su Feng directly, but Su Feng smiled and said nothing every time. Over time, they even felt that Su Feng was a little arrogant, and they became more and more dissatisfied with him in this atmosphere. The days flew by quickly, and soon it was Friday. Tomorrow is the third round of the Bundesliga 2, when Paderborn plays Sandhausen away from home. After training this afternoon, the Paderborn team walked towards the door of the locker room in anticipation. There, the 18-man roster for tomorrow's game against Sandhausen will be announced. Entering the squad means that tomorrow's game will go to Sandhausen with the club and stand on the field of the Bundesliga. If you don't make the squad, you can only stay in the club and conduct some personal training. In other words, it means staying alone in an empty room and watching others go. Do you think Feng will be included in the squad for this round of the league? Paderborn's players began to discuss the starting lineup for tomorrow's game on their way to the locker room. I think not. Although he is very skilled, you have also seen his attitude on the field. I believe Mr. Gerald will not be so stupid as to let a non-runner come on the field. You can't say that. He has such superb skills at his feet. Even if he is not running actively, he can still make a great contribution to the team. What's more, this is his first game after joining the team, so it is appropriate for him to make his debut. Su Feng and Vidra walked side by side among the crowd, and naturally heard the gossip of this group of people, but he ignored it and acted as if he didn't hear it. Since he came to Europe to play football, he has received countless looks. But in the football field, only the strong are admired. When he first appeared in the youth team, he encountered many people's abuse and doubts. In the end, didn't he shut them up with the power at his feet? Not to mention Su Feng already knows very well whether his name will be included in the next league squad under Paderborn's current situation. Even if head coach Gerald had reprimanded him for being late a few days ago, he would still make his debut now. He urgently needs a player to stand up and break the team's current predicament. Even if he scores a goal to boost morale, and Su Feng is his hope in front of the locker room. Paderborn's players had already gathered in front of the locker room door. Assistant coach Bradrick had just arrived belatedly and walked to the door of the locker room. From the way the players got out of the way, boys, the roster for the next game has come out. Come and take a look. Bradrick didn't show off and directly posted the roster on the wall. Then, the players all swarmed forward, looking at the names on the roster and praying that they could be on it. A player at the front read out the names on the roster for everyone because he could see it most clearly. Starting player, number 2 Hunemir, number 5 Vidra, substitute player, number 23, Feng Su. Chapter 047. Manchester United sky-high contract. Freiburg regrets it. Su Feng was not very surprised to see his name appear on the 18-person roster, but he was still a little excited inside. He has spent more than half a year in time. Originally he was just playing in the youth league, but now he is really going to enter the professional league. Moreover, although he is only on the bench, according to the wishes of head coach Gerald, he will definitely come on in the second half of this game to adapt to the rhythm of the game. It may not be much time, but it is enough for a newcomer who has just joined the Bundesliga 2. At the age of 17, he was able to join the first team as a forward and had a chance to make his debut. It can be said that Su Feng's experience surpassed that of most players in history. Feng, congratulations on making the squad for the next game. Paderborn's captain Hunemir walked to Su Feng's side, patted his shoulder affectionately, and encouraged, "Follow the coach's instructions. If you are used to it, you will definitely be able to make your debut in the next game, and I believe you will definitely be able to score a goal then." What Hunemir said was actually a polite statement. Many forwards in football history were unable to make their debut. Scored his first goal, not to mention in Paderborn, where morale was low. However, in his heart, he hoped that Su Feng could score a goal and break the team's embarrassing situation of having no results in 2 rounds of the league. Hunemir has deep feelings for the Paderborn team. He is not a product of Paderborn's youth training, But Paderborn is also his first team in the professional league now. He has been with the team for 10 years and has a strong affection for Paderborn, even more than the head coach Gerald. Moreover, many years later, Hugh Nemir, who retired from Paderborn, became the assistant coach of the first team. It can be seen that he has sincere feelings for the team. Feng smiled brightly at Hugh Nemir. He had a pretty good impression of this upright captain. He's one of the very few players in the team who not only appreciates his skills but also accepts his way of playing. Thank you, Captain. I will definitely work hard. Hugh Nemir nodded and chuckled, then stepped forward and hugged Feng. Boy, go to bed early when you go back in the evening, adjust your mentality, and strive for success in tomorrow's game. When facing the cheers of the fans, don't be too nervous, otherwise you won't be able to score goals to help the team win. Feng nodded, his heart full of expectations for tomorrow's game. Of course, he still has some hope that he can really do what Hugh Nemir said and score his first goal in the Bundesliga in his debut. That feeling will definitely be so cool. After Feng's simple greetings, the team members all found out whether they were on the roster. They entered the locker room with different expressions and took off their equipment. It can be said that tonight some people are happy and some are sad. Feng, on the other hand, followed Vidra and plunged into the entertainment room. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. Meanwhile, Freiburg Club Administrative Building first team coach Strachey held a report sheet in his hand. His face was heavy, his brows were furrowed, his silver teeth were grated, but he could not make a sound for a long time. Seemingly unable to resolve the resentment in his heart, he suddenly picked up the nearly full cup of coffee on the table and drank it in one gulp. What should we do now? Strachey spread his hands and said in frustration to Bruns, who was sitting opposite him, we really made a mistake this time. We didn't expect that this Chinese boy could be so. How many wealthy clubs have taken a fancy to him? Bruns glanced at the report sheet in Strachey's hand. That is the transfer quotation from Manchester United for Feng that Freiburg just received today. It clearly shows that Manchester United intends to introduce the 17-year-old forward from Freiburg for €10 million during the winter window. However, Manchester United's hand speed is a bit slow. Manchester United didn't know that Freiburg's senior management had loaned Feng to Paderborn and signed a preemptive right of €2 million, as long as Paderborn wanted to buy Feng. The idea is that according to the contract, Freiburg only needs to be given €2 million. Compared with Manchester United's offer, this is simply a great shame in Strachey's life. Bruns shook his head. Mr. Strachey, the only way now is to let Paderborn unilaterally breach the contract, so that Feng's ownership rights can still be in our hands. However, it seems that this is impossible. How do you say that? Strachey's eyes were empty. With no energy at all, this transfer fee alone will cost Freiburg at least €8 million. This does not include Feng's outstanding performance in Paderborn before the next winter window. If so, other clubs' bids would only be higher. When he thought of this, Strachey couldn't help but want to slap himself in the face and ask himself why he made such a stupid decision in the first place. I still look down on others and think that Feng's worth will not exceed €2 million even if he plays in the Bundesliga 2 for one season. I heard that Feng's trial training in Paderborn was very good, and Feng Du has been selected for the 18-man squad for tomorrow's game against Sandhausen. Bruns stood aside and told what he knew. All the information came out. What? Gerald, an old guy, actually acted so resolutely that a 17-year-old young man started to come on as a substitute to adapt to the game. Strachey opened his eyes wide, with disbelief written all over his face. Yes, this is what I heard from an official from the Bundesliga 2 when I handed in our 18-man squad for Freiburg. Bruns thought for a while and suggested, now, I can only ask, is Paderborn's head coach really satisfied with a player Feng? Let's see if there is still a chance to terminate the contract with him and stop the loss in time. Otherwise, our Freiburg club may really suffer a huge loss this time. Strachey lowered his head and thought about it carefully, and found that Bruns' proposal was really the best way at the moment. Otherwise, both Freiburg and Strachey will become a disgrace to football. After thinking about it, he took out his mobile phone from his pocket, found the number of Paderborn's head coach Gerald, and called him. Chapter 048. The third round of the Bundesliga 2 is about to begin. The phone rang for a while before being answered. Gerald's slightly tired voice came from the other side. Mr. Strachey, is there anything important? You are calling me so late? Strachey forced a smile on his face and spoke softly, as if he wanted to cover up his thoughts. Yes. There's nothing important. I just want to ask if you are still preparing for tomorrow's game against Sandhausen. Yes. Sandhausen is not a strong team in the Bundesliga second division, and the results of the first 2 games the state is not good either. Maybe tomorrow will be our team's chance to win for the first time. If this is the case, then I would like to congratulate Mr. Gerald in advance on your victory. Gerald on the other end of the phone, his voice suddenly became a little impatient. Stretch, if you have anything to do, just say it directly. I still have a lot of work waiting for me to deal with, and I don't have time to talk to you here about such gossip. Stretch, seeing that Gerald was a little impatient, he did not continue to beat around the bush and went straight to the topic. I'm calling you just to ask, how is Feng's performance at Paderborn? Has he met your club's requirements to become a substitute player? I'm thinking, Freiburg and Paderborn, after all, we have been friends for so many years. If he can't meet your requirements, it wouldn't be good for you to rent a player out for nothing. Moreover, Feng is still relatively young and is the one who will increase the number of goals. At that time, if he can't get a chance to play with you, it will not be conducive to his development. So, I just want to tell you that if you are not satisfied, we can refund the entire rental fee to you. Collect any liquidated damages. I can loan Feng to other German leagues for a few more years. Strachey's attitude was very sincere, and it seemed that his purpose was very simple, just for the 2 clubs. The healthy development between them, and at the same time, try to let Feng have the ball to play. But a voice coming from the other side of the phone left Strachey stunned. No need, Mr. Strachey. I would also like to thank you and Freiburg Club for sending such an outstanding player here. Feng has been selected for the next round of competition, and he will be the first show-off. If you have time, you can pay attention to the performance of the players. Okay, I have something else to do, so I won't tell you any more. Beep beep, the sound of the phone hanging up. After the sound, Strachey stood motionless on the spot, his eyes a little dull. Paderborn's head coach Gerald hung up the phone directly, which actually represented his attitude. He admired the player Feng very much, and no matter what good things Freiburg said, he would not talk about Feng. The wind was returned, although, in the past few days, Feng and Vidra were late in training because they were addicted to slack. He had already taught Feng a strict lesson. There was no need to affect the team's planning on such trivial matters. It was time for Feng to make his debut. The show won't change for now. Before Feng appears in the game, Feng's strategic position in Gerald's heart cannot be shaken. Bruns, standing next to Strachey, listened to the entire call without missing a word. At this moment, his face was very ugly and bitter, and he pursed his lips sadly. Not knowing what to say judging from the remarks made by Paderborn head coach Gerald just now, Strachey and Bruns both thought that Feng's buyout to Paderborn was almost a certainty. This was a big deal for them. I felt a huge impact on my heart. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. After all, Feng had only been in Paderborn for a week and was already selected for the competition squad. This shows that his performance in Paderborn has been recognized by the coaching staff, and once he enters the squad for the game, it won't be long before he makes his debut, and it won't be too far away if he can put up numbers and show his worth later on. This declares that if Feng is loaned out, Freiburg will definitely end up losing nearly 10 million euros. Strachey stood there and put away the phone. He was stunned for a long time and sighed before continuing. Oh, Bruns, I was wrong this time. I didn't expect that a man ran away. A player who is not very active can actually have a place in Paderborn. Although he said this, Strachey still hoped that even if Feng made his debut in Paderborn, he would not be able to play for his worth. Freiburg would rather not earn these 2 million euros. If he cannot, he will become a sinner, and Freiburg buying an extremely talented striker to Paderborn for a buyout price of 2 million euros will become a joke in the history of football. But of course, Strachey a week ago never thought that this scene would happen again in the future, having been a coach for nearly 10 years. He thinks he has a good eye for people, and this mistake was just a special occasion. Today's Freiburg has no shortage of forwards at all. It is indeed a common approach for first-team head coaches to rent out or sell players with great deficiencies in their abilities early to gain profits for the team. Thinking about it, Strachey felt a little restless. For the first time, he took out a pack of cigarettes from his desk drawer, lit one for himself and handed it to Bruns in front of him. Tomorrow is a rest day for the team, and there is nothing we need to do. Let's work hard, watch the game in Sandhausen, and see Feng's performance. He slowly blew out a smoke ring. Strachey said haggardly, if I don't figure this out, I won't even be able to sleep at night. Anyone else would beat their chest and sigh if they sold a young talent who just joined the team a month ago at a low price. Strachey just wanted to understand everything and let go of the stone in his heart. However, When he decided to watch Paderborn play Sandhausen, he already had the consequences of selling at a loss in mind. He agreed to this matter on his own initiative and used it to quarrel with the head coach of the youth training team. He must give an answer to the senior management of Freiburg club. Later Bruns took the cigarette box and lit one for himself, venting his worries in this way. Everyone spent a long night with heavy hearts. Time passed and it came to the next day, Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the center of Sandhausen, Baden-Württemberg, near the Hartforest Stadium. Many fans have gathered around the Hartforest Stadium, waiting to check in and enter the stadium. Most of them are wearing black Sandhausen jerseys, and of course there are a few wearing red and yellow Paderborn jerseys. Jersey in the third round of the Bundesliga 2, Sandhausen faced Paderborn at home about to start. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 049. The atmosphere of the professional arena. Sandhausen takes the lead. It didn't take long for the fans inside Hartforest Stadium to erupt in deafening cheers. After Sandhausen broke into the Bundesliga 3 in 2008, the heart-swelling stadium underwent a renovation. Now the entire stadium can accommodate approximately 14,000 spectators, and it is full. However, the vast majority of these people are Sandhausen fans, and only a small number are Paderborn fans. They are all looking forward to the start of the game and their home team to win today's game, especially the fans of Sandhausen. They are playing at home today and have a natural home advantage. They hope to break the team's failure to win in the first two rounds of the league. Sandhausen currently has 2 games, 1 draw and 1 loss, with 1 point, which is at the bottom of the league rankings, but it is still much better than Paderborn's 0 points. Bang bang, bang bang. On the sidelines, the fans held high the flags with the Sandhausen team emblem and swayed rhythmically to the sound of drums. This is the fans cheering for Sandhausen's players, hoping to stimulate the players' fighting spirit and score this crucial 3 points against Paderborn at home. Sandhausen, we must win. Sandhausen, we must win. Sandhausen fans stood up one after another, hugging their neighbors and dancing to the rhythm. While this cheered the home team, it also put invisible pressure on the visiting team Paderborn. There were not many fans in Paderborn, only about 3 stands were filled. But they still did not show weakness. Under the organization of fan representatives, they also shouted the team's name to cheer for the home team, Paderborn. Paderborn. Before the game started, the fans of the 2 teams were already competing with each other. This is very common in Germany, where football is highly developed. Although this is not the highest level league in Germany, the atmosphere is still much more lively than the top leagues in most countries. Under the influence of this strong football atmosphere, it is difficult for football not to become strong. Welcome everyone to watch the third round of the 2015-2016 German Bundesliga season, Sandhausen vs Paderborn at home. On the podium in the center of the stadium, a German game commentator said at the beginning of the game in the first 20 minutes, a forward-looking game introduction was carried out normally. Both teams are in relatively sluggish form this season, and neither team has yet won their first win of the season. There is not much difference in their rankings in the standings, but often this kind of game can inspire the 2 teams more. Fighting spirit, work hard to win. So I believe that today's game will definitely not disappoint everyone. Okay, the game is about to start. Let me first introduce to you the starting lineups of the players on both sides. After the commentator's introduction, under the enthusiastic cheers of the fans in the audience, the starting members of the 2 teams walked out of the player tunnel with their ball boys in hand, and walked towards the field to prepare for the game. The game begins after the ceremonies for the substitutes of the 2 teams. After the starting players came on the field, they wore substitute clothes and slipped from the player tunnel to sit on their own bench when Sufa walked out of the players' tunnel. He was extremely shocked when he saw the huge crowd of fans. This is the first time he has stepped into a stadium of this level as a player, and the first time he has walked out of the tunnel. The youth league competition is to cultivate reserve forces for the club, so there are no various competition rituals like the Bundesliga league. There were no packed houses, deafening cheers, or even the tunnel at this time. Although Feng was not a starting player, he could not feel the cheers of the fans after walking out of the tunnel. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels, but you can also feel the passion of fans from both sides. 14,000 fans, eyes full of excitement, stared at the green pitch of Hartforest Stadium, looking forward to the start of the derby. As the fans shouted, the staff on the sidelines and reporters from the news media were busy urgently They placed the filming equipment and carefully checked it to prevent it from falling during the game. There is no doubt that the 22 people standing on the court at this moment are the superstars in Hart Forest Stadium today, enjoying the cheers of the fans. Feng, who felt all this for the first time, closed his eyes and opened his hands, enjoying the sounds on the court at this time. He couldn't help but look forward to whether head coach Gerald would give him a chance to make his debut today. After putting him on the expanded list, he couldn't wait any longer. 10 minutes later, beep. Beep. After all the ceremonies, the players of the two teams arranged their formations on the field, and the head coach also blew the whistle to officially start the game. The home team, Sandhausen, took the lead in sending the ball from the center circle and passed it back to the midfielder. They coordinated with short passes and looked for opportunities. The visiting team Paderborn's players also immediately followed up and launched a high-position press. Feng, who was sitting on the bench, patiently watched the match between the two teams. This is also the first time for him to sit in this position and observe the intensity of the Bundesliga game at close range. Although these two teams are both lower-tier teams in the German second division, he has to admit that the intensity of competition in the professional league is indeed much higher than that in the youth league. When players from both sides compete for every ball, they will almost use their full strength to compete with their physical strength. When there is space, regardless of whether the football will be passed to the feet or not, players will actively push forward and wait for opportunities. When encountering a change of ball possession, the defensive players will try their best to defend. Even if they cannot stop the ball, they will put away the offensive player with the ball. Under such intense confrontation and running, the players on the field were sweating heartily. Even though their feet were not outstanding, the game was still enjoyable to watch. Various tactical fouls sometimes appeared frequently. In less than 20 minutes, Paderborn's fullback received a yellow card from the referee for upending Sandhausen's forward. This kind of game no longer stimulates Feng all the time, making him look forward to his first appearance even more. At the 40th minute of the game, there are only the last 5 minutes before the end of the regular time of the first half of the game, the Sandhausen winger seized the opportunity, pushed the ball near the baseline and cut inside. Finally, he found the right time to pass the ball. Hoping to pass the ball to his teammates near the penalty area with his strong body, Sandhausen's forward jumped up against the two opposing center-backs who were guarding him and successfully fought for the top. Looking back at the moon, he threw the ball hard towards Paderborn's goal. Fortunately, Paderborn's goalkeeper was very focused, made a diving save, and successfully saved the football. Rolling towards the outside of the penalty area was almost filled with players from both teams at this time. A Sandhausen midfielder appeared just near the landing point of the football, and kicked an unremarkable push towards the far corner of Paderborn's goal. Paderborn's goalkeeper couldn't defend in time and watched the football roll into his own goal. The ball went in. Chapter 050. Facing dismissal from Get Out of Class? Feng comes on as a substitute. In the spectator seats, Sandhausen fans instantly stood up from their seats, waving their arms, and burst into cheers to celebrate this wonderful goal. The Sandhausen midfielder who scored the goal immediately rushed to the bottom line of the court to show his jersey to the fans. Other players who came later hugged him and celebrated him taking the lead in scoring Paderborn's goal. On the other side, the Paderborn fans sitting there had bitter looks on their faces and booed loudly, which was in sharp contrast to the excited Sandhausen fans. Feng, who was sitting on the bench, felt the atmosphere of scoring goals on the court and became more and more full of expectations for the game. This feeling really made a young player like him a little unsure and couldn't help it. I want to go on the field immediately and score my own goals and enjoy this sense of accomplishment. Moreover, after all, this is only the home court of a team from the lower reaches of the Bundesliga too, so there's such a football atmosphere. What if it were replaced by the stadiums of clubs such as Bayern Munich, Dortmund, and Bayer Leverkusen, the top Bundesliga giants? What's more, what about the world-famous San Siro Stadium, Santiago Bernabeu Stadium, Camp Nou, Old Trafford Stadium, Anfield Stadium, and Etihad Stadium? Thinking of this, Feng couldn't help but imagine what it would be like to be able to play in these stadiums one day and score his own goals. It must be a great feeling of accomplishment, right, after Sandhausen scored. The first half came to an end. Paderborn's players wanted to seize the last moment and equalize the score. In this case, they will not go into the locker room to rest at midfield with a psychological burden, but the ability of their forward players is really worthy of consideration. They were unable to score in the first two league games. In a hurry, there will be no way to deal with Sandhausen's retracted defense. Not long after, the injury time of the first half was over, and the referee blew the halftime whistle. The home team, Sandhausen, entered the halftime break with a 1-0 lead. 15 minutes later, The players from both sides returned to the field again and started the second half of the contest. Compared with the first half, the pace of both sides in the second half of the game was obviously slower, and the passion for confrontation was also reduced. Of course, this is also related to the fact that the players' physical strength was not as strong as in the first half. After Sandhausen's players got the ball, they played a ball possession game in the backcourt, waiting for opportunities and not rushing to attack. This is how their coach adjusted their tactics in the second half, mainly playing defensive counterattacks, so that Paderborn did not have the ball and made mistakes in a hurry. To be honest, this kind of game is not very enjoyable to watch. Most of the time is spent passing the ball between players from both sides, and there is a lack of some exciting and eye-catching performances. Fans from both sides seemed unwilling to see such a scene, and bursts of boos began to erupt in the spectator seats. Zook Sook Soo, Zook Sook Soo. Sandhausen's head coach was okay. After all, they had already scored a goal, and the second half was passed without incident. Getting 3 points is the best thing, but Paderborn's head coach Gerald felt a little uncomfortable. Read more novels by visiting our website Night Novels. No goal in the second half means Paderborn's defeat is certain. This is not a situation he wants to see. Paderborn has already lost miserably in the first 2 rounds, without scoring a single goal. If this is still the case in the third round, where will his face be? Moreover, these 3 teams are still in the lower reaches of the Bundesliga too. Later, they will face some strong teams in the Bundesliga too. What will they do then? At the beginning of the season, achieved a luxurious losing streak, so, spread your hands? He must be waiting for the end of class. 10 minutes into the second half, looking at the players from both sides entangled on the field, Gerald could not see any hope in his resentful eyes. Unable to wait any longer, Gerald was eager to change the team's status quo. So, he frowned and shouted anxiously to the assistant coach, "Bradrick, let the wind warm up quickly. If he waited any longer, the team would lose at this time. Replace Su Feng to see if he can bring some changes to the front line. Maybe a miracle can happen. Doing this is at least better than waiting to lose." Su Feng, who was sitting on the bench, heard the assistant coach asking him to warm up and prepare to play. A glimmer of light flashed in his eyes, and he stood up from the stool in a snap. Then, after checking his equipment, he started jogging on the sidelines to warm up under the envious eyes of his teammates on the bench. A few minutes later, Su Feng, who was ready, followed assistant coach Bradrick to the 4th official's side and waited after the loan contract was completed. Paderborn immediately gave Su Feng a first-team supplementary report, so Su Feng's name could be added to the starting roster this time, and there was naturally no problem with substitutions during the game. The 4th official quickly adjusted the substitution card, and when the game reached 63 minutes, he raised the substitution card. Paderborn's number 10 forward Sagrick came off the field, and number 23 forward Su Feng came on as a substitute. Su Feng's Bundesliga debut has finally arrived. After clapping with the frustrated Sagrick, Su Feng took a deep breath and then touched the hard Forest Stadium affectionately. Behind the turf, he slowly ran towards his position as Su Feng came on the stage. The Sandhausen players all looked at him warily. Tall stature was their first impression of Su Feng under such circumstances. Playing for Paderborn for the first time, Sandhausen's players couldn't help but decide to keep a close eye on him to prevent him from finding opportunities. This also made Su Feng truly regarded as an opponent by players from the German Second League. The number 23 forward who is coming on as a substitute for Paderborn is the young Chinese player Feng, who has just been loaned from Freiburg U17. On the rostrum, the commentator immediately pulled out Su Feng's information and started an introduction to him. Said, according to information, he is only 17 years and 213 years old, and has already broken Paderborn's youngest competition record. Chinese players are very rare in Germany. The last one was from Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga. However, he did not have any wonderful performance in Wolfsburg. I hope this young Chinese player from the German Youth Academy can be on the field. Give us some great performances. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.